Maya Brooks thought the worst part of her double shift would be sore feet and grease stains. She was wrong. The moment a silver-haired stranger in an expensive suit leaned across the counter and whispered, "The two men by the window, they're here to take you," her world tilted sideways. He claimed the only way she'd walk out alive was to pretend he was her father. A complete stranger. A man whose cold eyes had seen things that would make most people run. But the alternative was worse. So Maya made a choice that would unravel every lie she'd ever been told. Thank you for joining this story. Please like, comment with your city so I can see how far this tale has traveled, and stay until the end to discover the truth. Maya never knew she was running from. Quote, the overhead fluorescents in Rosie's diner buzzed like dying wasps, casting a sickly yellow glow over cracked vinyl booths and formica tables that had seen better decades. Maya Brooks moved between them with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd spent too many years refilling coffee cups and pretending to care about strangers' problems. Her feet ached in shoes held together more by hope than actual structural integrity, and the grease from the kitchen had long ago stopped washing completely out of her hair. She was 26 and looked older. Life had a way of doing that. Coffee, hun? She forced brightness into her voice for the businessman in booth 7, the one who'd been nursing the same cold cup for the past hour, while his laptop screen reflected blue light across his exhausted face. He barely glanced up. Sure, Maya poured, her movements automatic. Through the window, the city streets glistened with recent rain, neon signs reflecting in puddles like broken promises. It was nearly 11 at night, that dead hour when the dinner rush had faded and the late-night drunks hadn't yet stumbled in looking for grease to soak up their mistakes. The bell above the door chimed. Two men entered, and something in Maya's chest tightened before she could name why. They wore dark jackets despite the mild weather, and their eyes swept the diner with the kind of systematic attention that had nothing to do with finding a good seat. One was tall, lean, with a scar that cut through his left eyebrow. The other was built like a refrigerator, all shoulders and compressed violence. They chose a booth by the window. Not the most comfortable, not the cleanest, but positioned perfectly to watch both the entrance and the kitchen exit. Maya's hand trembled slightly as she grabbed two menus. Professional paranoia, she told herself. Working late shifts in this neighborhood made everyone jumpy. She'd seen enough sketchy characters to fill a police lineup. But these two were different. She couldn't explain how. They sat too still, watched too carefully. Evening, gentlemen. She kept her voice steady as she approached. Can I start you off with something to drink? The scarred one smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Coffee? Black. Same, the refrigerator added. His voice was surprisingly soft, which somehow made him more unsettling. Maya nodded and retreated to the counter, her pulse doing things it had no business doing. She was being ridiculous. They were just customers. Weird customers, sure, but Rosie's attracted weird the way streetlights attracted moths. The coffee pot shook in her hand as she poured. Easy there, sweetheart. Len, the night cook, leaned through the window separating kitchen from dining area. You look like you've seen a ghost. Long shift, Maya muttered. It's only Tuesday. You work doubles on Friday and Saturday, too. Yeah, well, she didn't finish the thought. Len didn't need to know that she worked doubles because her mother's medication wasn't going to pay for itself, or that the student loans from her abandoned college career were currently in their 7th month of forbearance, or that the rent on their crappy apartment had gone up again. The bell chimed a second time. A man entered, and the air in the diner changed. He was older, maybe 60, with silver hair swept back from a face that looked carved from expensive marble. His suit probably cost more than Maya made in 3 months, charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes that whispered money the way some men shouted it. He moved with the kind of confidence that suggested he'd never waited in line for anything in his life. His eyes found Maya immediately. Not the way men usually looked at her, the once-over that lingered too long, the assessment that made her feel like merchandise. This was different, calculated, almost worried. He approached the counter and sat on one of the red vinyl stools, his movements deliberate. Up close, Maya could see the fine lines around his eyes, the silver stubble along his jaw that suggested he'd had a long day. A very long day. Coffee? Maya asked, because that's what you asked. Please. His voice was smooth, cultured, with an accent she couldn't quite place. European, maybe. Old money. Definitely. She poured, acutely aware that the two men by the window had stopped pretending to look at their menus. They were watching. The silver-haired man was watching back, and Maya was caught in the middle of whatever silent conversation was happening. The man took a sip of coffee, then set the cup down with precision. "Maya," he said quietly. Ice flooded her veins. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" "No." He kept his voice low, conversational, like they were discussing the weather. "But the two men by the window know you, or rather, they know what you look like. They've been waiting for your shift to end." Maya's mouth went dry. "What are you talking about?" "Don't look at them." His tone sharpened just enough to freeze her instinctive glance toward the booth. "In approximately 10 minutes, they're going to follow you out to your car. You won't make it home." "This isn't funny." But her voice shook, because deep down in the part of her brain that still remembered running from shadows as a child, she knew he wasn't joking. "I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to keep you alive." He pulled out his phone, tapped something, then showed her the screen. "Look at this. Quickly." Maya glanced down. It was a photograph of her, taken from across the street. Recent, maybe from this morning when she'd been heading to the laundromat. The metadata showed it had been sent to an encrypted messaging service 3 hours ago. Her fingers gripped the counter. "Who are you?" "Someone who knew your father." The world tilted. "My father is dead." "Yes." Something that might have been grief flickered across his face. "Thomas Brooks was a good man. He made one mistake, and it cost him everything." "Stop." Maya's voice cracked. "You don't know anything about my father." "I know he loved you enough to die protecting a secret he hoped you'd never need to understand." The man's gray eyes held hers. "I know your mother moved you 6 times before you turned 10. I know she told you it was because of job opportunities, but you always wondered why she seemed so afraid. And I know that those men in the booth have orders to take you alive, which means you still have value to people who shouldn't know you exist." Maya's breath came shallow. Every word hit like a bullet, accurate and devastating. "What do you want?" "To keep a promise I made to your father 15 years ago." He glanced at his watch, then back at her. "We have about 7 minutes before they make their move. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to call me Dad. You're going to smile like you're surprised to see me. And you're going to walk out of here with me like we planned this reunion weeks ago." "You're insane." "Probably." He smiled, but it was sad. "But I'm also the only thing standing between you and a very unpleasant conversation with people who torture first and ask questions later." Maya looked at him. Really looked. There was something in his eyes that reminded her of her mother in the middle of the night, when Elise thought Maya was asleep. That haunted, hunted expression of someone who'd seen too much and forgotten how to feel safe. "Why should I trust you?" "Because your father trusted me. Because your middle name is Catherine, after your grandmother who died in a car accident that wasn't an accident. Because you have a scar on your left ankle from when you fell off your bike running away from a dog that wasn't actually chasing you. You were running from the black SUV that had been parked outside your apartment for 3 days straight." His voice softened. "And because if I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't have bothered with a warning." The scar on her ankle tingled. She'd always remembered that incident differently, the way her mother had carefully edited the story until Maya believed the simplified version. 5 minutes, the man said quietly. Maya's hands were shaking. This was insane. Everything about this was insane. But the two men by the window were shifting in their seats, one of them checking his phone with the kind of focused attention that suggested instructions. "What's your name?" she whispered. "Adrian Vale." The name meant nothing to her, but the way he said it suggested it should mean something to someone. "If I do this," Maya started. "When you do this," Adrian corrected gently. "When I do this, you're going to tell me everything. About my father. About why those men want me. About all of it. Every truth your mother tried to bury. Yes." He raised his voice slightly, injecting warmth into it. "Maya, I can't believe you're working here. Your mother said you'd moved, but I had no idea." It took Maya a second to catch on. Then her training as a waitress who dealt with drunk customers and grabby businessmen kicked in, and she found the smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh my God." She made it sound surprised, delighted even. "Adrian, what are you doing here?" "Business meeting ran late." Thought I'd grab coffee before heading back to the hotel. He stood, opened his arms like he expected a hug. Come here, kid. The kid thing was a nice touch. Made it sound paternal, familiar. Maya moved around the counter and let this strange, dangerous man embrace her, and tried not to think about how this was possibly the worst decision she'd ever made. They're watching, Adrian murmured against her hair. When I pull back, you're going to tell your cook you're taking your break early. Family emergency. Then we walk out together, casual. My car is the black Mercedes 2 spots down from the entrance. Okay? Maya's voice barely functioned. Adrian released her, keeping one hand on her shoulder in that way older relatives did. You look good. Tired, but good. Double shifts. Maya tried to make her laugh sound natural. You know how it is. She turned to Len, who was watching through the kitchen window with undisguised curiosity. Hey, I need to take my break. Family thing. Len frowned. You've got 4 more hours. I know. I'll make it up. She'll make it up tomorrow. Adrian interjected smoothly, pulling out his wallet. He placed $200 bills on the counter. For her time, and for your understanding. Len's eyes widened. Yeah, sure. Take your time, Maya. Maya grabbed her jacket from the hook behind the counter, her movements jerky with adrenaline. The 2 men in the booth were both on their phones now, speaking in low, urgent voices. One of them stood. Now, Adrian said quietly. They walked toward the door, Adrian's hand light on Maya's elbow, guiding without forcing. The bell chimed as they exited into the cool night air that smelled of rain and exhaust, and something else, something wrong. Don't run, Adrian instructed. Walk like we're just going to the car. The Mercedes chirped as he unlocked it. Maya's entire body screamed at her to bolt, to scream, to do anything except get into a car with a stranger. But the diner door was opening behind them, and she heard heavy footsteps, and the choice between known danger and unknown danger suddenly became very simple. She got in the passenger seat. Adrian slid behind the wheel with practiced ease, started the engine. The car purred to life, expensive and powerful. He pulled out of the parking spot with the kind of calm that suggested this wasn't his first extraction under pressure. In the rearview mirror, Maya watched the 2 men from the diner burst onto the sidewalk, pointing at the Mercedes. One of them raised his phone. The other ran toward a dark SUV parked half a block down. They're following us, Maya whispered. They are. Adrian turned left, then immediately right, navigating the late-night streets with the confidence of someone who'd planned this route. Put on your seatbelt. Maya fumbled with the belt, her hands useless. What did my father do? Tried to be a hero. Adrian accelerated through a yellow light, the Mercedes eating up distance. Didn't work out the way he planned. Behind them, the SUV ran the red light, gaining. Adrian's jaw tightened. Hold on. He yanked the wheel right, cutting through a narrow alley that Maya wouldn't have thought the Mercedes could fit through. Dumpsters and fire escapes blurred past. The SUV tried to follow, but had to brake hard, too wide for the gap. There's more than one of them, Adrian said, checking his mirrors. They'll have people on parallel streets. We need to get you somewhere safe. Safe? Maya's laugh was slightly hysterical. Nothing about this is safe. I don't even know you. You could be kidnapping me right now. If I were kidnapping you, I wouldn't have bothered with the cover story. Adrian swung left onto a main street, merging smoothly into late-night traffic. I'd have just taken you. That's not reassuring. It wasn't meant to be reassuring. It was meant to be true. He glanced at her, and for a moment his expression softened. I understand you're frightened. You have every right to be. But right now, I need you to trust me long enough to get us somewhere we can talk without being shot at. Shot at? Maya's voice cracked. Why would anyone shoot at me? I'm a waitress. I make $8 an hour plus tips. The most exciting thing in my life is when someone doesn't send their eggs back. Your father stole something very valuable from very dangerous people. They want it back. He died 15 years ago. Which is why they assumed the trail went cold. Adrian turned again, this time into an underground parking garage. He pulled a card from his wallet, swiped it at the gate. Until 3 weeks ago, when someone ran a facial recognition search on public databases and got a hit, you were caught on a traffic camera downtown. After that, it was just a matter of time. The gate lifted. Adrian drove down 2 levels, the concrete walls pressing in close. before parking in a spot marked reserved. He killed the engine. Silence filled the car, broken only by the tick of cooling metal and Maya's ragged breathing. "I don't have whatever my father stole," she said finally. "No, but they think you might know where it is." "I don't." "I believe you." Adrian turned to face her fully. "The question is whether they will, after they've spent several days asking." Maya's stomach turned. "Days?" "People like this don't rush." Adrian's voice was gentle, which somehow made it worse. "They're thorough, methodical. They'll take you somewhere quiet and work through every possibility, every memory, every conversation you might have had with your father before he died. I was 11. I know. I barely remember him." "I know that too." Adrian's hand rested on the steering wheel, and Maya noticed the scars across his knuckles, old and white. "But they don't care what you remember. They care about what you might know without knowing you know it." Maya closed her eyes. This couldn't be happening. 6 hours ago, her biggest worry had been whether she could pick up an extra shift to cover the water bill. Now she was sitting in an underground parking garage with a stranger who claimed to have known her dead father, running from men who wanted to torture information she didn't have out of her. "I need to call my mother." "No." Adrian's response was immediate. "Your phone is compromised. How do you think they found you?" "I haven't given my number to anyone suspicious." "You didn't have to. They have access to databases you didn't know existed." He pulled out his phone, tapped something. "I'll call her from a secure line, but you need to prepare yourself." "For what?" "For the possibility that everything she told you was a lie." The words hit like a physical blow. "Don't talk about my mother like that. She's been through enough." "I'm sure she has." Adrian's expression was carefully neutral. 16 years of looking over her shoulder. 16 years of wondering if today would be the day they found you. That takes a toll. "You don't know anything about what she's been through." "I know more than you think." Adrian met her eyes. "I was there when your father died." The air left Maya's lungs. "What?" "Thomas and I worked together. Same organization, different departments. He came to me 3 days before he died and told me he'd found something. Evidence of trafficking operations that went all the way to the top. Names, dates, routes, payments, everything needed to bring down a network that had been operating for decades." Adrian's voice was flat, reciting facts. "He was going to turn it over to the FBI. I told him to wait, to let me help secure his family first. He said there wasn't time. And then he died. And then he died." Adrian's jaw clenched. Car accident, single vehicle, rainy night. Investigators ruled it mechanical failure, brake line corroded. These things happen. But they don't. No, they don't. He looked away. "I got to the hospital 20 minutes after he was pronounced dead. Your mother was there with you. You were wearing a yellow raincoat and holding a stuffed rabbit. You kept asking when Daddy was going to wake up." Maya's throat closed. She didn't remember the raincoat, but the rabbit, she'd kept that rabbit until college, until her mother had finally convinced her to donate it to charity. "I tried to talk to Elise," Adrian continued. "Tried to tell her what Thomas had been working on, what danger you were both in. She screamed at me, told me to get away from her family, said if I ever came near you again, she'd call the police." He smiled without humor. "I respected her wishes, kept my distance, but I never stopped watching, never stopped making sure you were safe." "Why?" Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "Because I owed your father a debt I could never repay. Because he died trying to do the right thing, and the least I could do was make sure his death meant something." Adrian's gray eyes held hers. "Because you deserved better than being hunted for sins you didn't commit." Maya wanted to call him a liar, wanted to demand proof, evidence, something concrete. But the pieces fit too well with the gaps in her childhood, the moves that made no sense, the way her mother flinched at sudden noises and never kept the same phone number for more than a year. "So what now?" she asked. "Now we get you somewhere safe, while I figure out who's running the current operation. The people after you aren't the same ones who killed your father. The organization has changed hands several times, but someone high up decided you were worth pursuing, which means—" His phone buzzed. Adrian glanced at it, and his expression shifted from calm to cold rage in the span of a heartbeat. "What?" Maya demanded. "They found your apartment." "What?" Adrian was already starting the car. "Is your mother home?" "Yes, she's always home at night. Her shift ends at 6. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. Oh, God. We have to? We are. Adrian reversed out of the spot with controlled speed. Call her. Use my phone. Tell her to lock the doors. Don't answer for anyone. We're 10 minutes out. Maya grabbed the phone, her fingers fumbling over the unfamiliar interface. She found the dial pad, punched in her mother's number from memory. It rang once, twice. Come on, Mom, pick up. 3 times. 4. Pick up the phone. 5 times. Click. Hello? Her mother's voice was wary, unfamiliar number showing on caller ID. Mom, it's me. Maya, whose phone is this? What's wrong? Mom, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Lock all the doors right now. Don't answer for anyone. We're coming to get you. What? Maya, you're scaring me. I know, I'm sorry, but please just trust me. Lock the doors. She heard her mother moving, the chain sliding into place, the deadbolt clicking home. Their apartment had 3 locks, installed by a landlord who'd given up on the neighborhood ever getting better. They're locked, Elise said. Now tell me what's happening. There are some men looking for me. Bad men. They might come to the apartment. What men? Maya, what have you gotten yourself into? It's not... Maya looked at Adrian, who was navigating streets with the GPS efficiency of someone who'd memorized half the city. It's about Dad. Silence on the other end. Mom? Your father has been dead for 15 years. Elise's voice had changed, gone flat and hard. Whatever this is about, it has nothing to do with him. That's not true, and you know it. Maya was surprised by the steel in her own voice. You've been running from something my whole life. I just never knew what. Maya? A crash from Elise's end of the line cut her off. Mom? Someone's at the door. Her mother's voice was barely a whisper. They're breaking it down. Adrian accelerated, the Mercedes engine roaring. Tell her to go out the back window. Fire escape. Now. Mom, the fire escape. You have to... Another crash, the sound of splintering wood. Mom! I'm going. Elise was moving. Maya could hear it, could picture her mother scrambling through their tiny apartment. Maya, where are you? We're almost there. Just get out and run. We? Elise's voice sharpened. Who's with you? Someone who knew Dad. Someone who says he can help. No. The word was violent. No, Maya. Get away from whoever it is. Get away right now and call the police. The police can't help with this. You don't understand. A male voice in the background, shouting. Maya couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear enough. Orders, threats. Mom, just run! The phone clattered like it had been dropped. Maya heard her mother's footsteps, fast and uneven. Then the shriek of the window opening, then nothing. Mom! Mom! The line went dead. She dropped the phone, Adrian said, because Maya couldn't form words. That doesn't mean they caught her. The fire escape goes down to an alley. If she's fast, she can make it to the street before they circle around. If. Maya's voice broke. You said if. She survived 16 years of this. She knows how to run. Adrian took a corner hard enough that the tires screamed. Maya braced herself against the door, her mind racing through possibilities, each worse than the last. Her mother was 53 with bad knees and lungs that had never fully recovered from pneumonia 2 winters ago. How fast could she really run? Fast enough. She had to be fast enough. There, Adrian pointed. Maya saw their building, 6 stories of worn brick and broken dreams. The front entrance stood open, the security door that never locked now hanging at an angle. A dark SUV was parked half on the curb, flashers on. I'm going in, Maya said. No, you're not. That's my mother. And you're what they actually want. Adrian grabbed her wrist, not hard but firm. If you go in there, every sacrifice your parents made was for nothing. I don't care. Yes, you do. His grip tightened. I can see you want to be reckless and brave, but you're also smart enough to know that's not going to help Elise. So we're going to circle the block, check the alley, and if she made it out, we pick her up. If she didn't, Adrian's expression said everything his words didn't. They drove around the block, slow enough to look without seeming to look. The alley behind the building was narrow, lined with dumpsters and broken pallets. A figure emerged from the shadows, limping but moving. There, Maya pointed. Elise looked smaller than Maya remembered, hunched and favoring her left leg. Her gray hair had come loose from its usual bun, and even from a distance, Maya could see the fear in every line of her body. Adrian pulled up alongside her. Maya had the door open before the car fully stopped. "Mom!" Elise's head snapped up. She saw Maya, and her expression cycled through relief, terror, and rage in rapid succession. "Get in the car," Maya urged. But Elise was staring at Adrian through the windshield, and her face had gone white. "You," she breathed. "Hello, Elise." Adrian's voice was carefully neutral. "We can discuss how you feel about me later. Right now, we need to move." "I told you to stay away from my daughter." "Your daughter is the reason I'm here. They found her at work. I got her out." Elise looked at Maya, really looked, and seemed to catalog every detail: the borrowed phone, the expensive car, the fact that Maya was still breathing. "How long have we got?" she asked Adrian. "Minutes, maybe less. They'll check the alley next." Elise got in the back seat, wincing as her knee bent. Maya slid in next to her, and Adrian was already accelerating before the door fully closed. "Are you okay?" Maya grabbed her mother's hands. They were cold, shaking. "Did they hurt you?" "I'm fine. I went out the window as soon as I heard them at the locks." Elise's voice was steadier than her hands. "Maya, listen to me very carefully. Whatever this man has told you, you can't trust him. He saved my life. For now. But Adrian Vale doesn't do anything without a reason, and it's never the reason he tells you." From the driver's seat, Adrian didn't react, just kept driving, his attention split between the road and the mirrors. "Thomas trusted him," Maya said, "and Thomas is dead." The words hung in the air, sharp and ugly. "That's not fair," Maya whispered. "Fair?" Elise laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to talk about fair? Your father trusted the wrong people and paid for it with his life. I've spent 16 years keeping you safe, keeping us hidden, and in one night all of that is gone because this man," she gestured at Adrian, "decided to play hero again." "I didn't bring them to her," Adrian said quietly. "They found her on their own. I just made sure they didn't take her." "How noble," Elise's voice dripped acid. "And what's your plan now? Where exactly are you taking us?" "Somewhere they won't think to look." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're getting until we're secure." Adrian met Elise's eyes in the rear-view mirror. "I know you hate me. I know you blame me for what happened to Thomas. You're entitled to both those feelings, but right now they don't matter. Right now, the only thing that matters is keeping Maya alive long enough to figure out our next move." "Our move?" Elise's voice rose. "There is no our anything. The second we're safe, you're going to walk away and never contact my daughter again." "Mom," Maya started. "No." Elise gripped Maya's hand hard enough to hurt. "You don't understand what you're getting into. These people, this world your father was part of, it destroys everything it touches. I won't let it destroy you too." Maya looked at her mother, really looked. The lines around Elise's eyes that had always seemed like ordinary aging suddenly looked like accumulated fear. The gray in her hair wasn't time passing. It was stress, constant and grinding. Everything Maya had thought she knew about her mother's exhaustion, her paranoia, her inability to ever quite relax, it all snapped into horrible focus. "How long have you known they were still looking?" Maya asked quietly. Elise's expression cracked. "Maya? How long, Mom?" "I never stopped knowing." Elise's voice broke. "Every day for 16 years, I woke up wondering if this would be the day. Every time you came home late, every time the phone rang from an unknown number, every time I saw a black car parked too long on our street, I thought, this is it. They found us. And you never told me. How could I?" Tears streamed down Elise's face. "You were a child. Then you were a teenager trying to have a normal life. Then you were working yourself to death trying to take care of me, and I couldn't add this to everything else you were carrying." Maya wanted to be angry, wanted to rage at the lies, the secrets, the 16 years of half-truths. But looking at her mother's ravaged face, she could only feel a tired, aching sadness. "We need to talk about what Thomas found," Adrian said. He'd been quiet through the exchange, giving them space, but now his voice cut through. "The evidence he was going to turn over. Do you know where it is?" "No." Elise said immediately. Elise, I said no. She glared at Adrian. Thomas told me he'd hidden it somewhere safe. He never said where. I never asked. The less I knew, the less they could get out of me if they ever caught up with us. But he must have left some clue. Some way for you to find it if you needed to. If there was, I never found it. And I looked. Elise's voice was bitter. After he died, after I realized what he'd done and what it meant, I tore apart every place we'd ever lived together. Nothing. Either he took the secret to his grave, or it's still out there waiting for someone smart enough to find it. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. That's a problem. Why? Maya asked. Because that evidence is the only leverage we have. Without it, we can't negotiate, can't threaten exposure, can't do anything except run and hope they get bored. They won't get bored, Elise said flatly. These aren't the kind of people who forget. No, Adrian agreed. They're not. The car fell silent except for the hum of tires on pavement and the occasional streetlight flashing past. Maya's mind spun through everything she'd learned in the past hour, trying to find some pattern, some answer in the chaos. Her father had found evidence of trafficking. He'd died before he could deliver it. Her mother had spent 16 years running, and now because of a traffic camera and facial recognition software, it was all catching up with them. Where are we going? Maya asked. A safe house, Adrian replied. One of mine. Off the books. Paid for in cash. No paper trail. We can stay there while I make some calls. Calls to who? People who owe me favors. People who might know who's running the current operation. He glanced at her. This isn't the same organization your father tried to expose. That one fell apart after the original leadership died or went to prison. But the network got bought out, restructured. Someone kept it alive. And you think your friends can find out who? They're not friends. But yes, they can find out. Adrian's smile was cold. I've spent the last 15 years building insurance policies. Information on people who would rather that information stayed private. It's time to cash some of them in. The safe house turns out to be a condo in a building that looked expensive enough to have its own security. Adrian parked in an underground garage that required 3 separate access codes, then led them to an elevator that needed a key card. You really do this a lot, Maya observed. More than I'd like. Adrian held the elevator door. Less than I used to. They rode up in silence. The hallway on the 12th floor was carpeted in thick gray, the kind that swallowed sound. Adrian's condo was at the end, unmarked except for a number. Inside, it was exactly what Maya expected from a safe house maintained by someone like Adrian. Functional, anonymous, and ready for a quick departure. The furniture was modern but generic. The kitchen looked unused. The windows had heavy blackout curtains. There's food in the pantry, Adrian said. Bathrooms down the hall. I need to make those calls. Don't go near the windows, don't answer the door, and don't use your phones. Misha, mine included. They'll be tracking it by now. He disappeared into what looked like a small office, closing the door behind him. Maya stood in the middle of the living room, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. Her feet ached from the double shift. Her head pounded from too much adrenaline and not enough answers. Sit down before you fall down, Elise said, easing herself onto the couch with a wince. Maya sat. For a moment, they just existed in the strange quiet of this strange place. 2 women who'd been running in different ways for longer than either wanted to admit. I'm sorry, Elise said finally. For what? For all of it. For lying. For not preparing you. For not being stronger. Her mother's voice was hollow. I thought if I could just keep you safe long enough, eventually you'd be old enough to disappear on your own. Change your name. Move somewhere they'd never think to look. Start over completely. That's not a life, Mom. It's better than being dead. Maya couldn't argue with that. Tell me about Dad. The real version, not the story you've been telling me. Elise was quiet for so long that Maya thought she might refuse. Then she took a breath and started talking. Thomas was an analyst, financial crimes division, federal level. He was good at seeing patterns other people missed, connections that didn't make sense until he laid them all out. We met at a coffee shop. I was working there to put myself through nursing school. He came in every morning for a double espresso and a blueberry muffin. Mtepam. She smiled at the memory. He always tipped exactly 23%. I asked him about it once. He said it was the optimal percentage to show appreciation without seeming like you were trying to impress the server. Pakyam. That sounds like something a financial analyst would say. He was sweet in his own analytical way. Elise's smile faded. We got married. Had you, thought we were building something normal. Then he came home one night with this look in his eyes, said he'd found something at work, something big, files that weren't supposed to exist, payments that didn't match up, routes that created a web across 3 continents. The trafficking operation. He didn't tell me everything. Said it was safer if I didn't know, but I gathered enough. Children, mostly. Moved from country to country, sold to the highest bidder. The organization had people in government, in law enforcement, in positions where they could make problems disappear. Elise's hands twisted together. Thomas said he'd found proof, documents, recordings, account numbers, everything needed to bring down the entire network. So why didn't he just turn it over? He tried, went to his supervisor first. The man told him to drop it, that he was seeing connections that weren't there. When Thomas pushed, he got transferred to a different department. Then he went to the FBI. Submitted everything through official channels. Elise's voice went flat. 2 days later, our house got broken into. Nothing taken, but everything gone through. Every drawer opened, every file examined. They left a stuffed animal on your bed. One you'd never seen before. The tag said, "Sweet dreams." Maya's blood went cold. Thomas understood the message, Elise continued. Back off, or something happens to his daughter. So he went to Adrian, who worked in, I don't actually know what department, something that didn't officially exist. Thomas thought Adrian could help, could get the evidence to someone who couldn't be bought or threatened. But he didn't. He tried. I think he genuinely tried, but Thomas didn't wait. He made copies, hid them in different locations, and then... Elise's voice cracked. Then he died. And Adrian showed up at the hospital telling me I needed to disappear, that they'd come for you next. I didn't believe him. Thought he was paranoid. Then I got home and found our apartment torn apart again. Different from the first time. Meticulous. Professional. They were looking for something and they didn't care about hiding it. So you ran. So I ran. Took you and whatever I could carry and just ran. Changed cities every time I thought someone was watching too close. Worked cash jobs when I could. Under-the-table nursing when I couldn't. Kept you out of school sometimes. Homeschooled you badly because I was too afraid to let you stay in one place long enough for anyone to notice. Elise wiped her eyes. I failed you in every way that mattered, but I kept you alive. That has to count for something. Maya reached for her mother's hand. It counts for everything. They sat together in the dim light, 2 survivors of a war they'd never asked to fight. From the office, Maya could hear Adrian's voice, low and intense, making deals, calling in favors, doing whatever it was people like him did to stay ahead of people like the ones hunting them. The night stretched on, and Maya wondered what her father would think if he could see them now, his wife and daughter, hiding in a stranger's safe house, running from the consequences of his attempt at heroism. Maybe he'd be proud they were still alive. Maybe he'd be sorry he'd ever tried to be a good man in a world that punished goodness. Maya would never know. All she had was right now, this moment, and the terrible certainty that morning would bring new problems she couldn't yet imagine. Outside the blackout curtains, the city continued its indifferent business, full of people whose biggest worry was whether they'd remembered to set their alarms or what to have for breakfast. Maya envied every single one of them. Maya woke to pale dawn light seeping around the edges of the blackout curtains and the smell of coffee that was too good to come from a safe house pantry. For one confused moment, she thought she was back in her apartment, that the whole nightmare had been some fever dream brought on by too many double shifts and not enough sleep. Then she felt the stiffness in her neck from sleeping upright on an unfamiliar couch, and reality crashed back in. Her mother was asleep in the bedroom, curled on her side with one hand tucked under her cheek the way she always slept. Maya had watched her for a long time, before exhaustion finally dragged her under sometime around 4 in the morning. Elise looked smaller in sleep, vulnerable in a way that made Maya's chest ache. Adrian was in the kitchen, somehow managing to look put together despite the fact that he'd been on the phone until at least 2. He'd changed into a fresh shirt. Apparently safe houses came equipped with his size, and his silver hair was still damp from a shower. Coffee? He held up a mug without looking at her. Please. Maya's voice came out scratchy. She accepted the mug, wrapped her hands around the warmth. Did you sleep at all? Some. He poured his own cup, added nothing to it. I'm used to running on empty. Maya took a sip and almost groaned. It was good coffee, the kind that came from beans that cost more per pound than she made in a day. Where'd this come from? I had it delivered. There's also food in the fridge now. Actual food, not just canned goods and protein bars. Adrian leaned against the counter, studying her over the rim of his mug. You look like your father when you first wake up. Same expression, like you're trying to solve a puzzle that doesn't have enough pieces yet. Maya didn't know what to do with that, so she drank more coffee. I made some calls, Adrian continued. The people looking for you are working for an organization called the Syndicate. Creative name, I know. They picked up the pieces after the original network collapsed and rebuilt it bigger, meaner, more efficient. The current head is a man named Victor Kane. The name meant nothing to Maya, but Adrian said it like he was announcing a cancer diagnosis. You know him. I know of him. We've never met, but our paths have crossed in the abstract sense. He's former military intelligence, turned private contractor, turned criminal mastermind. Very good at what he does, which is primarily moving things that shouldn't be moved and making problems disappear. Adrian set down his mug. Your father's evidence had names in it. Kane's name was one of them. So this is personal for him. Everything is personal for Kane. He doesn't forget slights, and he doesn't leave loose ends. Adrian's expression was grim. The fact that he's mobilized resources to find you 16 years after your father died tells me he's finally in a position where those old files could actually hurt him, which means he's made himself legitimate. Maya finished the thought, her mind jumping ahead. Or legitimate enough that exposure would cost him something real. Exactly. Adrian looked almost pleased. You do think like Thomas. Stop saying that. Why? It's true. Because he's dead and I'm not, and I'd like to keep it that way. Maya drained her coffee too fast, burning her throat. What else did you find out? Kane has been putting together something big. I don't know what yet, but my sources say it involves government contracts, private security firms, and enough money to make people look the other way. Whatever your father found 16 years ago is apparently still relevant enough to threaten that. So we find the evidence and use it against him. That's the idea. The problem is we have no idea where to start looking. Adrian refilled both their mugs. Your mother says Thomas never told her where he hid it. Do you remember anything? Anywhere he took you? Anything he said? Any place that seemed important to him? Maya tried to think back through the fog of 16 years and grief. She'd been 11 when he died. Old enough to remember, but young enough that the memories had worn smooth at the edges, losing detail with each passing year. He liked the harbor, she said slowly. We used to go there on Sundays when Mom was working. Just walk along the docks, watch the boats. He'd buy me ice cream and tell me about the places those ships had been. Which harbor? Kingston Harbor. The old commercial docks, not the tourist area. Maya closed her eyes, trying to pull up more detail. There was a bench he always sat on. Green paint, half of it peeling off. He said it was the best thinking spot in the city. Adrian straightened. Do you remember where exactly? Near Pier 7, I think. There was a warehouse behind it that had this faded mural of a whale. Maya opened her eyes. You think he hid something there? It's possible. Thomas was sentimental in his own way. He'd want to hide the evidence somewhere that meant something, somewhere he could check on it periodically without raising suspicion. Adrian pulled out a phone, a different one than he'd been using last night. A public place, but not too public. Somewhere that wouldn't change much over time. That was 16 years ago. The bench could be gone. The whole pier could be demolished. Only one way to find out. He made a call, spoke quietly to whoever answered, then hung up. We'll go this afternoon. Give the docks time to get busy. More people to blend in with. We? Elisa's voice came from the bedroom doorway. She looked exhausted, her gray hair tangled and her clothes rumpled from sleep. You're not taking Maya anywhere near those docks. Mom, no. Elise crossed to them, her limp more pronounced in the morning. I know what you're thinking, both of you, but Maya doesn't need to be there. You can check the harbor without her. She's the only one who knows exactly which bench, Adrian pointed out. I could search every pier in Kingston Harbor and still miss it if I don't know what I'm looking for. Then I'll go with you. I can identify... You never went to the harbor with Thomas. Adrian's voice was gentle but firm. You were always working Sunday shifts. It was their thing, father and daughter time. You wouldn't know the bench from any other. Elise's jaw clenched. So we're supposed to just walk Maya into a trap? It's not a trap if they don't know we're coming. Kane's people are looking for Maya to grab her quietly, extract information over time. They're not expecting us to go on offense. Adrian turned to Maya. But your mother's right about the risk. I can try to find it on my own if you give me the best description you can remember. Maya looked between them, her mother's fear-tight expression, Adrian's carefully neutral face. She thought about her father, about Sunday afternoons and ice cream and the way he'd quiz her on geography while pointing at container ships. He'd been teaching her, she realized now. Teaching her to pay attention, to remember details, to see patterns. He'd been preparing her for this without either of them knowing it. I'm going, she said. Maya, please, Elise started. He was my father. This is my life they're trying to take. Maya met her mother's eyes. You spent 16 years running so I could be safe. I get that. I'm grateful for it. But I can't run anymore, Mom. I need to know what he died for. Elise's face crumpled. You're so much like him, it hurts. Is that a bad thing? I don't know yet. Elise reached out, cupped Maya's face in both hands. Just promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you won't do anything stupid and heroic. I promise not to do anything stupider than getting in a car with a strange man last night. It was supposed to be a joke, but it came out flat. Elise let her hands drop and turned to Adrian. If anything happens to her, I will spend the rest of my life making sure you regret it. Fair enough, Adrian said. They spent the morning planning. Adrian produced maps of Kingston Harbor, both current and from 16 years ago, comparing what had changed. Pier 7 was still there, still operational, though several of the old warehouses had been converted into trendy loft apartments and artisan shops. Gentrification, Adrian muttered, makes everything complicated. He also produced clothes for Maya, jeans, a dark jacket, sensible shoes that looked well worn but fit perfectly. She didn't ask where he'd gotten them on such short notice. Didn't want to know, really. We'll take separate cars to the harbor, Adrian explained, spreading the maps across the dining table. I'll go in first, do a sweep, make sure there's no obvious surveillance. You and your mother follow 20 minutes later. Park in the public lot near the marina. Walk toward Pier 7 like you're tourists enjoying the waterfront. I'll be watching, but we won't acknowledge each other unless something goes wrong. And if something does go wrong, Maya asked, you run. Don't try to help me. Don't look back. Just run to the nearest crowded area and call this number. He handed her a burner phone with one contact programmed in. The person who answers will get you somewhere safe. What about you? I'll handle myself. Elise made a sound that might have been a laugh. That's what Thomas said. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. I'm not Thomas. I know how to fight dirty, and I don't have a family to protect anymore. That makes me dangerous in ways your husband never was. Is that supposed to be reassuring? It's supposed to be true. They left at 2 in the afternoon, Adrian first in his Mercedes, then Maya and Elise 15 minutes later in a nondescript sedan he'd had delivered to the building's garage. Maya drove, her mother tense in the passenger seat. The harbor smelled like salt and diesel and fried food from the tourist traps that had sprung up along the renovated sections. Maya found parking where Adrian had indicated, a public lot that charged by the hour and had security cameras that probably didn't work. I still think this is a mistake, Elise said quietly. You've made that clear. I just need you to understand. If we find what your father hid, if we actually have evidence that can hurt these people, they won't stop coming. Not ever. Not until we're dead, or they are. Maya cut the engine. Then I guess we better make sure they end up dead first. Elise's eyes widened slightly. That's not funny. I'm not joking. Maya surprised herself with how steady her voice was. I'm tired of being scared, Mom. I'm tired of living small and looking over my shoulder and wondering when it's all going to catch up with us. Maybe it's time to actually fight back. You sound like him again. Good. Maya got out of the car before her mother could say anything else. The waterfront was busy with the kind of weekend crowd that spent money on overpriced fish and chips and took selfies in front of boats they'd never own. Maya and Elise moved through it like ghosts, not quite part of the scenery, but not standing out either. Pier 7 looked different than Maya remembered. Smaller, somehow. Though that was probably just her perspective changing over 16 years. The warehouse with the whale mural was gone, replaced by a building that advertised loft living and harbor views. But the pier itself was still there, weathered wood and rusted chains and the smell of fish guts and ocean. Maya walked slowly, scanning the benches that lined the walkway. Most were new, donated by local businesses with little plaques advertising their generosity. But near the end of the pier, tucked slightly off the main path, she found it. The green bench. Paint peeling worse than she remembered, wood graying with age and salt air. Someone had carved initials into the backrest, JM plus RK forever. And there was a faded stain on the seat that might have been coffee or rust or something worse. Maya's chest tightened. She remembered sitting here with her father, remembered the way he'd lean back and close his eyes while she ate her ice cream too fast and got a brain freeze. He'd laugh and tell her to slow down, that good things were worth savoring. "Is this it?" Elise asked quietly. "Yeah." Maya's voice came out rough. "This is it." She sat down carefully, feeling the wood flex under her weight. From this angle, she could see what her father had seen, the harbor stretching out, boats bobbing at their moorings, the city skyline beyond. It was a good view, a thinking view, but she had no idea what she was supposed to be looking for. "Adrian said to check underneath," Elise murmured, glancing around to make sure no one was paying attention. Maya slid off the bench and crouched, feeling stupid and obvious. The underside was rough wood, covered in old gum and bird droppings. She ran her hands along it, searching for anything that felt wrong, felt hidden. Nothing. She checked the supports, the bolts holding the bench to the concrete. All original, all rusted in place. "Maybe it's not here anymore," Elise said. "Maybe someone found it, or the city replaced more than we thought. Or..." Maya's fingers caught on something. Not under the bench, but behind it, where the backrest met the seat. A gap, small and deliberate, covered by a piece of wood that moved when she pushed it. Her heart hammered as she worked the piece free. It came away with a soft crack, and behind it was a hollow space, and in that space was a waterproof bag sealed with tape that had somehow survived 16 years of weather. "Oh my God," Maya breathed. "Get it and move," Elise hissed. "Don't just stare at it." Maya grabbed the bag and shoved it inside her jacket, her hands shaking. She replaced the wood piece as best she could, then stood up too fast, her vision swimming. That's when she saw him. Across the pier, leaning against a lamppost with calculated casualness, was the scarred man from the diner. He was on his phone, but his eyes were locked on Maya. He smiled. "Mom," Maya said quietly, "we need to go." Elise followed her gaze and went pale. "Is that?" "Yeah." Maya started walking, not running, forcing herself to move at a normal pace, even though every instinct screamed at her to sprint. "Where's Adrian?" "I don't know. I haven't seen him since we got here." The scarred man pushed off the lamppost and started following, still on his phone, still casual. But now Maya could see others spreading out through the crowd. The refrigerator from the diner. 2 new faces, both with the same dead-eyed look. They'd been watching, waiting to see where Maya led them. "They're boxing us in," Elise said, her voice tight. Maya's mind raced through options. They couldn't go back to the parking lot. Too isolated, too easy to grab them. The crowded waterfront offered some protection, but not enough. They needed... A hand closed on her shoulder, and Maya spun, ready to scream. "Easy." Adrian's voice. He'd appeared from nowhere, dressed in tourist clothes that made him look 10 years older and completely harmless. "Keep walking. Don't look back." "They're everywhere," Maya hissed. "I know. I counted 6, but there's probably more." He guided them toward a section of the waterfront where construction scaffolding created a maze of covered walkways. "They're not going to grab you in front of witnesses. Too messy. They're herding you toward somewhere quiet." "So what do we do?" "We don't go quietly." Adrian's expression was cold, focused. "When I say run, you run toward the construction site. There's a gap in the fence on the north side. Through there, cross the street, and head for the subway entrance. Don't wait for me. Don't look back." "What are you going to do?" Elise demanded. "Buy you time." He pressed something into Maya's hand, keys. "Black Honda, 3 blocks north, license plate starts with KXT. If I'm not there in 20 minutes, drive to this address." He rattled off numbers and street names. "Repeat it back." Maya did, her voice mechanical. "Good girl." Adrian's hand on her shoulder tightened once, then released. "Run! Now!" Maya ran. She heard Elise behind her, gasping with each step, her bad knees slowing her down. They dodged through the construction site, ducking under scaffolding and weaving around equipment. Behind them, shouts erupted. Adrian doing whatever Adrian did to create chaos. The gap in the fence was right where he'd said, barely wide enough to squeeze through. Maya went first, then turned to help her mother, who was breathing in sharp, pained bursts. "I can't," Elise started. "You can." Maya grabbed her mother's arm and hauled her through. They stumbled onto the sidewalk, drawing startled looks from pedestrians. The subway entrance was half a block away. Maya ran for it, half dragging Elise, her lungs burning. They clattered down the stairs into the station, fumbled for money for tickets, squeezed through the turnstile just as a train pulled up. Maya pulled her mother aboard, and the doors closed behind them with a pneumatic hiss. Through the window, she saw the scarred man reach the platform. He punched the wall, his face twisted with rage. Then the train lurched forward, and he disappeared from view. Maya collapsed into a seat, her whole body shaking. Elise sat next to her, bent over her knees, wheezing. "Did we?" Elise couldn't finish. "I think so." Maya's hand found the waterproof bag still tucked inside her jacket. "I think we got away." "For now," her brain added. "For now." They rode the train for 6 stops, changed lines twice, finally emerged in a neighborhood Maya didn't recognize. It took her 3 tries to find the Honda, her hands shaking too badly to check license plates properly. When she finally got the car open, she just sat behind the wheel for a minute, trying to remember how to breathe. "Should we go to the address Adrian gave you?" Elise asked. Maya checked her watch. It had been 40 minutes since they'd split up. 20 minutes passed when Adrian should have been here. "Something went wrong," she said. "Or he got delayed. Or he's dead, and we're on our own." Maya started the car. "Either way, we can't just sit here." She drove to the address Adrian had given her, an apartment building in a neighborhood that was trying hard to gentrify, but hadn't quite made it yet. The building had security, but the code Adrian had made her memorize worked. The apartment was on the 4th floor, another safe house, this one smaller and less polished than the condo. It had the feeling of a place maintained out of necessity rather than comfort. Maya locked the door behind them, threw the deadbolt, and finally let herself collapse on the worn couch. "Let me see it," Elise said quietly. Maya pulled out the waterproof bag. Her hands were steadier now, running on adrenaline and desperate curiosity. She peeled away the tape, opened the bag. Inside was a USB drive, sealed in its own plastic bag, and a letter, written in handwriting Maya recognized from old birthday cards and school notes. Her father's handwriting. "Oh, Thomas," Elise whispered. Maya unfolded the letter with shaking hands. "My dearest Maya, if you're reading this, then I'm gone and you're old enough to understand why. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I won't be there to see you grow up, to walk you down the aisle someday, to meet my grandchildren. I'm sorry I put you in danger by trying to do the right thing. But I couldn't live with myself if I did nothing. The files on this drive contain evidence of crimes so terrible I can barely stand to think about them. Children taken from their families, sold, abused, destroyed, and the people responsible are so powerful, so protected, that no one seems able to stop them. I tried to go through official channels. They failed. So I'm taking this evidence and hiding it somewhere I hope no one will think to look. If something happens to me, your mother knows to keep you safe, to keep you moving, to never let them find you. But if you're reading this, then somehow you found your way back here. You found what I left behind. And now you have a choice to make. You can destroy this drive. Throw it in the ocean, burn it, make it disappear. No one would blame you. You could walk away and try to build a normal life. Or you can finish what I started. I won't tell you which to choose. That's not fair to you, and you deserve to make your own decisions. But I will tell you this, you are stronger than you know. You are braver than you believe. And you are my daughter, which means you have a spine of steel even if you don't realize it yet. Whatever you decide, know that I love you. Know that I'm proud of you. And know that even if I'm not there to say it, I'm cheering you on from wherever I've ended up. Be good to your mother. She's going to need you more than ever. All my love, Dad. Maya read the letter twice, then a third time, her vision blurring with tears. Beside her, Elise was crying silently, shoulders shaking. He knew, Maya said. He knew he was going to die. He suspected. Thomas was good at seeing patterns, remember? Elise wiped her eyes. He would have seen the signs, the same way he saw the patterns in the evidence. Maya looked at the USB drive. It was small, innocuous, just a piece of plastic and metal, but it represented lives destroyed and her father's death and 16 years of running. She plugged it into the laptop that was sitting on the coffee table, because of course, safe houses came equipped with computers. The drive contained hundreds of files, spreadsheets tracking payments and routes, audio recordings of conversations that made Maya's stomach turn, photographs of documents with official letterhead, and names, so many names. Victor Keynes was near the top. "This is enough," Elise breathed. "This is more than enough to bring them all down, if we can get it to someone who'll actually use it." Maya scrolled through more files, her horror growing. Dad tried to turn this over and look what happened. But he tried going through official channels. What if we don't? Elise's eyes had a hard gleam Maya had never seen before. What if we go public? Give it to journalists, post it online, make it impossible to bury. They'll kill us the second we surface. They're already trying to kill us. At least this way it would mean something. Maya stared at her mother, seeing a stranger in the familiar face. "When did you get so ruthless?" "About 16 years ago, when I had to choose between rolling over and protecting my daughter." Elise's jaw set. "I chose you then. I choose you now. And if that means burning down Victor Keynes' entire empire, then hand me the matches." A key scraped in the lock. Maya and Elise both froze. Maya's hand found a kitchen knife she'd grabbed earlier, muscle memory from late-night diner shifts where sketchy customers got too friendly. The door opened and Adrian stumbled in. He looked like he'd been through a war. His face was bruised, his shirt torn and bloody, and he was favoring his left side in a way that suggested broken ribs. But he was alive, and he was grinning. "Did you get it?" he asked. Maya held up the USB drive. Adrian's grin widened. Then it was worth it. "What happened to you?" Elise demanded, already moving toward him with nurse instincts overriding anger. "Had a conversation with Keynes' people. They were very insistent about learning your location." Adrian winced as Elise prodded his ribs. "I was very insistent about not telling them." "How many were there?" "4. Well, 3 now. The 4th is going to need extensive dental work." He looked at the laptop, at the files still displayed on screen. "Is it as bad as Thomas thought?" "Worse." Maya's voice was hollow. "There are files here going back 20 years, routes through 7 countries, account numbers in banks I've never heard of. And the names..." She turned the laptop toward him. "Some of these people are senators, judges, police chiefs." Adrian's expression darkened as he scanned the screen. "This is why they never stopped looking. Kane didn't just rebuild the network. He expanded it, legitimized it, turned it into something that operates in broad daylight while everyone looks the other way." "So what do we do with it?" Maya asked. "We burn him to the ground." Adrian met her eyes. "But we do it smart. No official channels, no trusting the system. We leak it everywhere at once. Journalists, activists, international watchdog groups, social media. We make it impossible to suppress, impossible to spin." "That's a death sentence for all of us," Elise said flatly. "Living in fear for the rest of your lives is also a death sentence, just slower." Adrian's voice was gentle. "This way, at least you go down swinging." Maya looked at the USB drive in her hand, then at her father's letter, then at her mother's exhausted face. "What would you do?" she asked Elise. "If it was just you, no me to worry about, what would you choose?" Elise was quiet for a long time. "I'd finish what your father started. I'd make sure those bastards paid for what they did." She smiled sadly. "But I have you to worry about, and that changes everything." "What if I don't want it to change everything?" Maya heard herself say. "What if I want to be the kind of person who finishes what needs finishing?" "Then you're your father's daughter." Elise reached out, touched Maya's cheek. "And I'll stand with you, whatever you decide." Maya took a breath, then another. Then she turned to Adrian. "How fast can you set this up?" Adrian's smile was sharp and dangerous. "Give me 6 hours." "You have 4, Maya said. "Because once they realize we got the evidence, they're going to come at us with everything they have. We need to move first, move hard, and not give them time to shut us down." "Agreed." Adrian pulled out yet another phone. How many did this man have? And started making calls. Maya sat with the USB drive in her hand and her father's letter in her lap, and wondered if this was what bravery felt like, or if it was just terror dressed up in different clothes. Outside, the sun was setting over a city that had no idea it was about to have its ugliest secrets dragged into the light. Adrian worked with the focused intensity of a man who'd done this before, his fingers flying across the laptop keyboard despite the bruises blooming purple across his knuckles. He'd stripped off his ruined shirt and was working in a blood-stained undershirt while Elise wrapped his ribs with an ace bandage she'd found in the safe house's surprisingly well-stocked first aid kit. "You need actual medical attention," Elise said, her nurse training evident in the efficient way she worked. "These ribs are cracked at minimum, possibly broken." "I've had worse." "That's not reassuring." "It wasn't meant to be." Adrian winced as she pulled the bandage tight. "I'm stating facts. Broken ribs heal. Dead doesn't." Maya watched them from her position by the window, where she was supposed to be checking the street for surveillance, but mostly just trying to process the fact that her life had gone from serving coffee to planning the takedown of an international criminal empire in less than 24 hours. The USB drive felt heavy in her pocket, weighted with more than just plastic and circuitry. "How many journalists are you contacting?" she asked. 12 so far. Investigative reporters with track records of going after powerful people and living to tell about it." Adrian pulled up a list of names Maya didn't recognize. "I'm also reaching out to 3 international human rights organizations, 2 documentary filmmakers, and 1 very motivated hacker collective that specializes in making information impossible to delete." "You know a hacker collective?" "I know a lot of people who exist in the spaces between legal and illegal." He typed something else, his expression grim. "When you live in those spaces long enough, you meet everyone else who does too." Elise finished with the bandages and stepped back, studying her work with a critical eye. "You should rest." "I'll rest when we're done." Adrian pulled his ruined shirt back on, not bothering to button it. "Maya, I need you to write something." "Write what?" "Your story, first-person account of the last 24 hours. Keep it short, keep it compelling, focus on the human element." He pulled up a blank document. "People need to understand this isn't just abstract corruption. It's you, running for your life because your father tried to be a good man. It's your mother, spending 16 years looking over her shoulder. Make them feel it." Maya stared at the blank screen. "I'm a waitress, not a writer. You're a person with a story. That's all you need to be." Adrian's voice softened slightly. "Thomas would want people to know why he did what he did, why it mattered. You're the only one who can tell them." The mention of her father made something crack open in Maya's chest. She sat down at the laptop and started typing. The words came easier than she expected, pouring out in a stream of consciousness that was probably too raw, too unpolished, but felt true in a way that mattered more than perfect grammar. She wrote about Sunday afternoons at the harbor, about her father's patience when she asked the same questions over and over, about the way he'd looked at her like she was the most important person in the world. She wrote about the moves, the fear in her mother's eyes that Maya had been too young to fully understand, the weight of secrets that shaped her childhood without her knowing why. She wrote about the diner, the moment everything changed, the choice between known danger and unknown danger. And she wrote about what was on the USB drive, about the evidence that had cost her father his life and was now threatening hers. When she finished, her hands were shaking and her vision was blurred with tears she hadn't realized she was shedding. "Let me see," Adrian said quietly. Maya pushed the laptop toward him, suddenly self-conscious. He read in silence, his expression unreadable, and Maya's stomach twisted with the certainty that she'd done it wrong, made it too personal, too emotional, not compelling enough. "This is good," Adrian said finally. "This is really good. People are going to read this and care. Or they'll think I'm making it up for attention. Some will, but enough won't. That's all we need." He copied the document, started pasting it into emails. The beauty of releasing this everywhere at once is that even if 90% of people dismiss it, 10% of the internet is still millions of people. And once it's out there, it's permanent. Kane can't unmake it. Elise had been standing by the window, quiet through Maya's writing. Now she turned and her expression was troubled. "There's a car," she said. "Dark SUV. It's been circling the block for the last 10 minutes. Adrian was at the window in seconds, peering through a gap in the curtains. "That's not surveillance. That's preparation." His voice had gone cold and professional. They're looking for the best approach, figuring out exits. How did they find us? Maya demanded. Could be a dozen ways. They might have been tracking me, or they got lucky, or someone saw us come in. Adrian was already moving, grabbing the laptop, unplugging drives. Doesn't matter. We need to leave. Now. The files aren't sent yet, Maya protested. I can send from anywhere. The important thing is not being here when they breach the door. He shoved the laptop into a bag, added the USB drive, and 3 more phones. Elise, there's a go bag in the bedroom closet. Grab it. Maya, put these on. He tossed her what looked like a bulletproof vest. Maya's hands went numb. You think they're going to shoot at us? I think they're going to do whatever it takes to get that drive, and I'm not taking chances. Adrian was strapping on his own vest, moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this too many times. The vest won't stop everything, but it'll help with the most common calibers. Elise returned with the go bag, already wearing her own vest. Her face was pale, but set with determination. Where are we going? Roof access. There's a fire escape that connects to the building next door. From there we can... Glass shattered somewhere below them. Or we can go now, Adrian amended. He grabbed the bag, headed for the door. Stay behind me, stay quiet, and if I tell you to run, you run. Don't argue, don't wait, just move. They slipped into the hallway, and Maya could hear footsteps echoing from the stairwell. Multiple sets, moving fast. Adrian led them the opposite direction, toward a door marked Roof Access, Emergency Exit Only. Won't that set off an alarm? Maya whispered. That's the least of our problems. Adrian hit the door hard, and an alarm immediately started shrieking. Run! They pounded up the stairs, the alarm wailing behind them. Maya's lungs burned, her legs screaming protest, but she pushed harder. Behind them, shouts erupted, and the footsteps changed direction. The roof door burst open under Adrian's shoulder, and they stumbled into cold night air and the glow of city lights. The roof was flat, covered in gravel and ventilation units, and the drop to the street below was enough to make Maya's stomach lurch. There, Adrian pointed to a fire escape on the far side. That building's empty, under renovation. We can lose them in... A bullet pinged off the metal duct next to Maya's head. She hit the ground on instinct, her father's voice in her head from some half-remembered lesson about stranger danger. Get small, get low, get away. Adrian returned fire with a gun Maya hadn't known he was carrying, the shots deafeningly loud in the open air. Go, I'll cover you. Elise grabbed Maya's arm, hauled her up, and they ran in a crouch toward the fire escape. Behind them, more gunfire, the sound of Adrian moving, always moving, drawing their attention. Maya's foot hit the fire escape, and she nearly went over the edge, grabbing the railing at the last second. The metal was slick with something, old paint, rust, her own sweat, and her hand slipped. I've got you. Elise's grip was iron, steadying her. Down quickly. They clattered down the fire escape, metal ringing under their feet. Above them, the gunfire continued, sporadic bursts that made Maya flinch every time. She wanted to look back, to make sure Adrian was following, but Elise kept pushing her forward. The fire escape ended 1 story above an alley. The ladder that should have extended to the ground was missing, probably stolen for scrap. Jump, Elise said. That's got to be 12 feet. Then you'll roll when you hit. I've seen you do it before, that parkour phase when you were 16. Elise was already swinging her legs over the edge. On 3. 1, 2. She jumped. Maya watched her mother hit the pavement, roll with a grace that looked painful, and come up limping but mobile. Then Elise was looking up at her, gesturing urgently. Your turn, baby! Maya swung over the edge, hung for a second, and dropped. The impact jarred through her ankles and knees, sent her sprawling across dirty asphalt that smelled like garbage and motor oil. She tasted blood where she'd bitten her tongue, and her shoulder screamed where she'd landed wrong, but she was down. She was moving. Elise pulled her up, and they ran. The alley opened onto a side street that was blessedly empty of dark SUVs. They ran until Maya's lungs felt like they were tearing, until Elise was gasping and holding her side, until they couldn't run anymore and collapsed behind a dumpster in another alley 3 blocks away. Adrian, Maya panted, we left him. He told us to run. He could be dead, or he could be doing exactly what he's trained to do. Elise was breathing hard, her face gray. We have to trust that he can take care of himself. Maya's phone buzzed, the burner Adrian had given her. She fumbled it out, nearly dropped it. A text from an unknown number. Made it out. Stay off main streets. Meet at fallback location. An address followed, somewhere on the industrial edge of the city. He's alive, Maya said, relief flooding through her so intensely she felt dizzy. For now. We all are. For now. Elise straightened, wincing. Can you walk? Can you? I've been walking on this knee for 16 years. I can make it a few more blocks. Elise managed a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Besides, what choice do we have? They moved through back streets and alleys, staying away from streetlights and security cameras as much as possible. The city around them continued its normal night, people heading to bars and restaurants, couples walking hand in hand, someone's music thumping from a car stereo. It felt surreal, all that normalcy happening while Maya's world was actively trying to kill her. The fallback location turned out to be a warehouse in a district that looked like it had given up on prosperity sometime in the 80s and never quite recovered. Adrian was waiting outside, still wearing his blood-stained clothes and the gun now visible in a shoulder holster. His face was grim. We have a problem, he said without preamble. Just one? Maya's laugh was slightly hysterical. Kane knows about the harbor, knows we have the drive. Adrian led them inside the warehouse, which was empty except for some old crates and broken pallets. One of the men I shot talked before he died, told them everything. So they're going to be watching every journalist, every organization you contacted, Elise said, which means we can't just email the files and hope for the best. They'll intercept, threaten, pay people off. Adrian's jaw clenched. We need a different approach. What kind of approach? Maya asked. The kind where we deliver it in person. Multiple drops, simultaneous, too many to stop all at once. He pulled out the laptop and Maya saw he'd been busy. The screen showed a map with 6 locations marked. 3 journalists, 2 human rights lawyers, and 1 media organization that specializes in this kind of exposure, all in different parts of the city. We hit them all within a 2-hour window, hand over physical copies of the drive, and get out before Kane can react. That's insane, Elise said. They'll be waiting at every single location. Probably, but if we're fast, if we're smart about it, we can get at least half the drops done before they shut us down. And half is enough. Adrian met Maya's eyes. It only takes one journalist with integrity and protection to blow this wide open. Maya looked at the map, at the 6 locations spread across the city like targets. We can't hit all 6 ourselves. There's only 3 of us. I have people, not many, but enough. Adrian made a call, spoke quickly in a language Maya didn't recognize, then hung up. 4 more will meet us here in 20 minutes. Ex-military, people I trust with my life. We'll split into teams, coordinate timing, move fast. And if we get caught? Maya asked. Then we make sure whoever catches us doesn't live long enough to stop the others. Adrian's voice was flat, matter of fact. This is war now, Maya. The polite version ended when they started shooting at you. The 4 people who arrived looked exactly like the kind of people Adrian would know, hard-eyed and efficient, with the bearing of soldiers even in civilian clothes. They listened to the plan without asking stupid questions, nodded at their assignments, and checked their weapons with the casual competence of people who'd done this before. Maya found herself paired with a woman named Chris, who was maybe 40 with short dark hair and a scar that ran from her ear to her jaw. She didn't smile, didn't make small talk, just verified that Maya could run and wouldn't freeze if things went bad. Can you shoot? Chris asked. I've never touched a gun. Then don't start now. You're the courier, I'm security. You stay behind me, you do what I say when I say it, and you don't try to be a hero. Chris's eyes were hard. Adrian says you're Thomas Brooks' kid. That mean anything to you? He was my father. He was a good man who tried to do a good thing. Got him killed, but it was still good. Chris checked her sidearm, slid it back into its holster. I'm going to make sure his kid doesn't end up the same way. Their target was a journalist named Sarah Chen who wrote for an independent news site that had broken major corruption stories before. She lived in an apartment building with decent security and, according to Adrian's intel, a healthy paranoia about unexpected visitors. She won't just open the door for you, Adrian said as they prepared to leave. You'll need to convince her you're legitimate. How? Use your father's name. Use the details only someone connected to the original case would know. He handed Maya a copy of the USB drive, sealed in plastic. And if she still won't listen, tell her this is the evidence Thomas Brooks died protecting. That should get her attention. Maya took the drive, felt its weight in her hand. What if she doesn't believe me? Then we move to the next target and hope they're more receptive. Adrian's expression softened slightly. But she will believe you. I've read her work. She became a journalist because she wanted to hold power accountable. This is exactly what she's been waiting for. They left in pairs, timing their departures to avoid a convoy that would draw attention. Maya and Chris took a car that had been left for them 3 blocks away. Another anonymous sedan, probably stolen or borrowed from someone who owed Adrian a favor. Chris drove with aggressive competence, taking turns too fast and running yellow lights, her eyes constantly checking mirrors. We're clean so far. No tail that I can see. That's good, right? Or it means they're better at following than I am at spotting. Chris took another turn, this one down a narrow street. Stay alert. Trust nothing. Sarah Chen's building was in a neighborhood that was trying hard to be hip. Trendy coffee shops and boutique stores mixed with older buildings that hadn't quite decided whether to gentrify or give up. Chris parked 2 blocks away in a spot that offered multiple exit routes. I'll go in with you, but I stay in the lobby, Chris said. Someone needs to watch the doors. You've got 10 minutes to make contact and hand over the drive. After that, we're gone whether she takes it or not. Maya nodded, her mouth dry. They approached the building and Maya could see Chris cataloging everything. The security camera over the entrance, the delivery person wheeling a cart, the couple arguing on the corner. Everything was a potential threat or potential cover. The lobby was generic upscale, all marble and mirrors. Maya found Sarah Chen's name on the directory, 12F, and buzzed. No answer. She tried again, still nothing. She might not be home, Maya said, or she's screening. Chris was watching the street through the glass doors. Try calling. Adrian gave you her number, right? Maya pulled out the burner phone, dialed. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. Maya waited for the beep. Ms. Chen, my name is Maya Brooks. My father was Thomas Brooks. He died 16 years ago trying to expose a trafficking network. I have the evidence he died protecting, and I need to give it to you. I'm in your lobby right now, please. The intercom crackled. Come up? The voice was wary, suspicious, but it was an invitation. Chris nodded approval. Go. I'll wait here. Anything feels wrong. You get out. The elevator seemed to take forever, and Maya's hands were sweating by the time she reached the 12th floor. Apartment 12F was at the end of the hall, door already cracked open. Come in quickly and close the door behind you, a voice called from inside. Maya obeyed, stepping into an apartment that was exactly what she'd expected from an investigative journalist. Organized chaos. Stacks of documents covered every surface. A wall of corkboard held photographs and notes connected by red string, and at least 3 different laptops were running. Sarah Chen was younger than Maya expected, maybe mid-30s, with sharp eyes behind black-framed glasses and her dark hair pulled into a messy bun. She looked exhausted and alert in equal measure. Show me your ID, Sarah said. Maya pulled out her driver's license, hands shaking slightly. Sarah examined it, then looked up at Maya's face, comparing. You look like your photo from the traffic camera, the one that flagged you in their system. How do you know about that? Because I've been investigating Victor Kane for 2 years, and 3 weeks ago, facial recognition hits on known associates started pinging all over my monitoring software. You were one of them. Sarah's expression was hard to read. Your father's name is on my research board. Has been for 18 months. Maya turned, and there it was. Her father's name in blue marker, connected to 6 other names and organizations. The sight of it made her throat close. He tried to expose the network 16 years ago, Sarah continued. Died in what was officially ruled an accident, but everyone in investigative circles knows was murder. The case went cold because the evidence disappeared. Until now, apparently. Maya held out the USB drive. It's all here. Everything he found, routes, payments, names, recordings, 20 years of trafficking operations, and proof that Victor Kane was involved from the beginning. Sarah took the drive like it was made of glass. You understand what this means? What happens once I publish this? People come after me, come after everyone I love, try to shut it down any way they can. Maya's voice was steadier than she felt. I know, I'm doing it anyway. Why? Because my father died for this. Because my mother spent 16 years running, because I'm tired of being afraid, and because those files have names of children who were taken, and maybe some of them can be found, or at least their families can know what happened. Maya met Sarah's eyes. And because if I don't do this, what was the point of any of it? Sarah was quiet for a moment, then she moved to one of her laptops and plugged in the drive. The files populated on screen, hundreds of them, and Sarah's eyes went wide. "This is incredible," she breathed. "This is going to bring down everyone, not just Kane. Everyone." "Can you protect yourself? Once you publish?" "I have a network. Other journalists, lawyers, people who've been waiting for something like this." Sarah was already copying files, her fingers flying. "I'll distribute it to a dozen different sources before I publish. Make it impossible to suppress." A crash from the hallway made both of them freeze. "What was that?" Sarah asked. Maya was already moving toward the door. "We need to go, now." She yanked open the door and nearly collided with Chris, who was backing down the hallway with her gun drawn. "They're in the building," Chris said. "4 of them at least. We need another exit." "Fire escape," Sarah said, already grabbing her laptop and the USB drive. "This way." They ran through the apartment to a window that opened onto a fire escape. Maya could hear heavy footsteps in the hallway, voices shouting. Someone hit Sarah's door hard, the wood splintering. Chris fired twice through the door, and the pounding stopped. "Go!" They climbed out onto the fire escape, cold wind whipping around them. Sarah led the way down, surprisingly fast for someone in heels and carrying a laptop. Maya followed, her hands slipping on the wet metal. Gunfire erupted above them, bullets sparking off metal. Maya ducked, nearly lost her footing, and Chris grabbed her collar to steady her. "Don't stop moving!" They hit the alley, and Chris immediately scanned for threats. "Clear for now. Sarah, you need to disappear. Go somewhere they won't think to look and start publishing." "What about you?" "We'll draw them off." Chris was already pulling Maya toward the street. "Go!" Sarah hesitated for just a second, then ran the opposite direction, laptop clutched to her chest. Chris and Maya made it 2 blocks before the dark SUV cut them off. Men poured out, 4 of them, all armed. Chris put herself between Maya and the guns, her own weapon up. "You're outgunned," one of the men said. He was older, with a face that looked like it had been broken and poorly set multiple times. "Put the weapon down and give us the girl. Nobody else needs to die tonight." "That's where you're wrong," Chris said, and fired. The next few seconds were chaos and noise and violence that Maya's brain couldn't quite process. Chris moved like she'd been born fighting, each shot deliberate, each movement economical. Men went down, and Chris kept moving, kept shooting, kept putting herself between Maya and the bullets. Then one got through. Chris stumbled, red blooming across her shoulder. She fired again, dropped another man, but her movements were slower now, pained. "Run," she told Maya. "I'm not leaving you. You have to." Chris grabbed Maya's jacket, shoved her toward an alley. "The other drops need to happen. Go!" Maya ran. She heard more gunfire behind her, Chris buying time with her life. And Maya ran until her lungs burned and her legs felt like they would give out. She didn't know this neighborhood, didn't know where she was going, just knew she had to get away, had to survive, had to make Chris's sacrifice mean something. Her phone buzzed. Adrian. "Are you clear?" "Chris is down. They ambushed us after the drop, but Sarah got away with the drive." Maya was gasping, still running. "I don't know where I am." "Send me your location. I'm coming to get you." Maya fumbled with the phone, managed to share her GPS coordinates. She kept moving, cutting through alleys and side streets, until she found a parking garage and collapsed behind a concrete pillar. 10 minutes later, a car pulled up. Adrian was driving and Elise was in the passenger seat, her face streaked with tears. "Get in," Adrian said. Maya threw herself into the back seat. "The others?" 2 drops successful. 1 interrupted, but the journalist got away with the files. 1 failed completely. Adrian's voice was hollow. "We lost 2 people, Chris and Marcus. The others made it out. Chris saved my life. That was her job. She knew the risks." Adrian pulled out of the garage, heading for the industrial district again. "Did Sarah get the drive?" "Yes. She said she was going to distribute it to multiple sources before publishing." "Good. That's good." Adrian didn't sound like it was good. He sounded like a man cataloging losses and wondering if the price was too high. They drove in silence, and Maya stared at her hands. They were shaking. Everything was shaking. 3 out of 6, Elise said quietly. Is that enough? It has to be, Adrian replied, because we're out of time and out of options. Now we just have to survive long enough for the story to break. Maya closed her eyes and saw Chris falling, saw the blood, saw the casual competence in the way those men had tried to kill her. She thought about her father, about whether he'd known it would come to this when he made copies of those files, whether he'd understood that choosing to be good in a world of evil meant accepting that good people would die. She thought he probably had, and he'd done it anyway. The new safe house was worse than the others. A studio apartment above a laundromat in a neighborhood where gunshots at night were common enough that nobody bothered calling the police anymore. The windows were painted shut, the air smelled like detergent and mold, and the single bed sagged in the middle like it had given up on life years ago. Maya didn't care. She was alive, and that felt like more than she deserved after watching Chris go down. Adrian disappeared into the bathroom with the first aid kit, and Maya could hear him hissing in pain as he dealt with whatever new injuries he'd collected. Elise sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing, her hands folded in her lap with the careful stillness of someone trying very hard not to fall apart. "Mom?" Maya's voice came out smaller than she intended. Elise looked up and her eyes were devastated. 2 people died tonight because of us. 2 people died because of Victor Kane and everyone like him. Maya sat next to her mother, felt the mattress dip. Chris knew what she was signing up for. Adrian said she volunteered. That doesn't make her less dead. No, it doesn't. Maya's throat was tight. But she made a choice, same as Dad, same as all of us. We're not forcing anyone to fight. Aren't we? Elise turned to face her. By existing, by having that evidence, by trying to expose Kane, we're forcing everyone around us to choose between helping or abandoning us. That's not fair to them. Nothing about this is fair. Maya heard the edge in her own voice, sharp and bitter. It wasn't fair when Dad died. Wasn't fair when you had to spend 16 years running. Isn't fair that children got sold and abused and destroyed while people like Kane got rich and powerful. Fair stopped mattering a long time ago. Elise's face crumpled, and she pressed her hands to her eyes. I'm so tired, Maya. I'm so tired of being afraid and running and losing people. I just want it to stop. Maya pulled her mother against her shoulder, felt Elise shake with silent tears. I know, me too. They sat like that for a while, the sounds of the laundromat below them providing a strange rhythm. Washers churning, dryers tumbling, the occasional bang of a door. Normal sounds, the kind that existed in a world where the worst problem was getting your whites clean. Adrian emerged from the bathroom looking marginally less bloody. He'd changed into a clean shirt, and Maya could see fresh bandages under the fabric. His face was drawn, older somehow, like the last few hours had aged him. We need to talk about next steps, he said, sitting in the room's only chair. Next steps? Elise's laugh was hollow. What next steps? We handed over the evidence. Now we just wait for someone to publish it and hope Kane doesn't find us first. It's not that simple. Adrian pulled out his phone, yet another new one. I've been monitoring communications. Kane knows the files are out there, knows we made multiple drops. He's mobilizing everything he has to shut it down before it goes public. How can he shut it down if multiple journalists have it? Maya asked. Money, threats, blackmail. He's got resources we can't match, and connections that run deep. Adrian's expression was grim. Sarah Chen's apartment was raided 20 minutes after we left. They didn't find her, but they got her equipment, her notes, everything except the laptop she took with her. Maya's stomach dropped. Is she okay? I don't know. She's gone dark, which is smart. Adrian scrolled through something on his phone. The other 2 successful drops. One journalist is already getting pressure from his publisher to kill the story. The other hasn't responded to any of my attempts at contact. So we failed. Elise's voice was flat. We bought time. That's all we could do. Adrian met Maya's eyes. But there's something else. Kane sent a message. Through channels I monitor. He wants to meet. The room went silent except for the rhythmic thump of a dryer below. That's a trap, Maya said. Obviously, but it might also be an opportunity. Adrian leaned forward. Kane is scared. He wouldn't reach out if he wasn't. He's offering a deal. We give him the original drive and any copies we still have, and he lets us walk away. New identities, relocation assistance, enough money to start over somewhere he'll never find us. And you believe that? Elise's voice dripped skepticism. No, but I believe he is desperate enough to make the offer. Adrian's fingers tapped against his knee, a nervous gesture Maya hadn't seen before. Which means we have leverage. Not much, but some. What kind of leverage? Maya asked. The kind where we threaten him right back. We've still got copies of the drive. We tell him that if anything happens to us, if we miss a check-in, those copies automatically get uploaded to every major news organization in the world. Adrian pulled up a screen showing a timer. I already set it up. This is a dead man's switch. I have to reset it every 12 hours, or it triggers automatically. Elise stared at the countdown. So we're just going to live with a ticking clock over our heads forever? Only until one of the journalists publishes. Once it's out, once it's public, the clock doesn't matter anymore. Adrian's jaw tightened. But until then, yes, we live with the clock. Maya stood, paced the small space. Her mind was racing, trying to see the angles, trying to think like her father would have. What if we meet with him, not to make a deal, but to buy more time? Absolutely not, Elise said immediately. Hear me out. Maya turned to face them both. Kane wants the evidence back because he thinks he can still contain this. What if we make him think we're willing to negotiate? We set up a meet, public place, lots of witnesses. While he's busy trying to intimidate us, the journalists are still working on their stories. He'd never go for a public meet, Adrian said. Then we suggest somewhere he thinks gives him the advantage. Somewhere he controls. Maya could feel the idea taking shape, reckless and dangerous. We walk in wired, record everything he says. If any of the journalists are wavering about publishing, a confession from Kane himself would tip them over. Adrian studied her with an expression she couldn't read. You're thinking like your father again. He tried something similar, got himself killed. He tried it alone. We're not alone. Maya looked at Elise. Are we? Elise was quiet for a long time, her face cycling through emotions Maya couldn't track. Fear, anger, resignation, something that might have been pride. If we do this, Elise said finally, we do it smart. No heroics, no taking unnecessary risks. We go in with a plan and an exit strategy, and the second it feels wrong, we get out. Agreed, Maya said, relief flooding through her. Adrian rubbed his face with both hands, and for a moment he looked exhausted beyond measure. You're both insane, you know that, right? We learned from the best, Elise said, and there might have been the ghost of a smile on her face. They spent the next 3 hours planning. Adrian made contact through the same channels Kane had used, suggested a meet at Kingston Harbor. Public enough to provide witnesses, but remote enough that Kane wouldn't feel cornered. The old pier near where Maya had found her father's evidence. Kane's response came back within 20 minutes. He'd meet them at midnight. Alone, he specified, though none of them believed that for a second. He'll have people positioned all over the harbor, Adrian said, marking spots on a map. Snipers here and here, ground teams covering the exits. He's not going to let us just walk away if the conversation doesn't go his way. So we don't plan on walking away, Maya said. We plan on running. Adrian showed them the escape routes he'd mapped. Through the construction site, across a maintenance catwalk, down to the water where he'd arranged for a boat to be waiting. It was complicated, required split-second timing, and would probably fail if anything went wrong. I don't like it, Elise said. Neither do I, Adrian admitted, but it's what we have. He produced recording equipment, small microphones that clipped inside clothing, barely visible. He showed Maya how to activate it, how to make sure it was picking up audio. Keep him talking, Adrian instructed. Get him to admit what he did, what the organization does. The more he says, the harder it becomes for him to deny later. And if he just shoots me instead of talking, then the dead man's switch triggers in. Adrian checked his phone. 7 hours and 15 minutes, and everything goes public anyway. It wasn't reassuring, but it was something. They left for the harbor at 11, giving themselves time to get into position. Adrian went first, disappearing into the night with the easy confidence of someone who'd done this too many times. Elise and Maya followed in a different car, taking a route that looped through half the city before ending up at the harbor. The waterfront was different at night. Shadows and distant lights, the smell of salt water and industrial runoff. The tourists were gone, replaced by the occasional homeless person and the rats that owned the piers after dark. Maya wore dark clothes and the recording equipment hidden under her jacket. She'd refuse the bulletproof vest this time. It would be too obvious, too bulky. If Kane saw it, he'd know they were planning something beyond a simple negotiation. "You don't have to do this," Elise said for the 10th time. "Yeah, I do." Maya checked the recording equipment one more time. "He wants to meet me specifically, wants to look in the eyes of the daughter of the man who tried to ruin him. I'm the bait that gets him talking." "I hate that you're right about that." "Me too." Maya tried to smile and didn't quite manage it. "If this goes bad, it won't. But if it does, I need you to know that I don't blame you for any of it. The running, the lies, the whole 16 years. You did what you had to do to keep me alive, and I'm grateful." Elise grabbed Maya's face in both hands, the way she used to when Maya was small. "You listen to me. This is not going bad. We're going to meet Kane, get what we need, and get out. Then we're going to watch his empire burn from a safe distance while drinking something expensive." "You don't drink." "I'll start." Elise pulled Maya into a fierce hug. "Your father would be so proud of you right now, and so terrified, both at once." "Sounds about right." They separated, and Maya walked toward Pier 7 alone. Her father's bench was visible in the distance, a dark shape against darker water. She could see someone standing near it, waiting. As she got closer, the figure resolved into a man. Tall, well-built, wearing an expensive coat that probably cost more than Maya's car. His face was hard to see in the shadows, but she could feel his attention focused on her like a laser. "Maya Brooks," he said as she approached. His voice was smooth, cultured, the kind that belonged to boardrooms and country clubs. "You look like your mother. I was expecting more of Thomas in you." "I'm told I think like him," Maya said, stopping about 10 feet away. "Close enough to talk, far enough to run if needed." "Yes, I've noticed that. The harbor, the evidence, the coordinated drops. Very Thomas. He always did love a complicated plan." Victor Kane stepped into a pool of light from a nearby lamp, and Maya got her first good look at the man who'd spent 16 years trying to destroy her family. He was handsome in that way powerful men often were, like money and influence had smoothed out all the rough edges. Silver hair perfectly cut, strong jaw, eyes that probably looked kind in the right lighting. Right now, they looked calculating. "He failed, you know," Kane continued conversationally. "Your father. All that evidence, all that righteous fury, and in the end it accomplished nothing. The network kept running. We adapted, reorganized, became stronger than ever." "Then why are you here?" Maya asked. "If you're so strong, why bother meeting with me at all?" Kane's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Because you're a loose end, and I don't like loose ends. Because you have something that belongs to me, and I want it back. And because I'm curious about what kind of person follows in Thomas Brooks' footsteps, knowing exactly where those footsteps led. Someone who's tired of running. Admirable. Stupid, but admirable." Kane took a step closer. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me the original drive and any copies you made. In exchange, I'm going to let you and your mother walk away. New names, new city, enough money to be comfortable. You disappear, I forget you exist, everyone wins. Except the people you're trafficking. They're not your concern. My father made them my concern." Maya's hand moved to the recording device, making sure it was still running. "He died trying to expose what you do. The children you sell. The lives you destroy." "Your father died because he overestimated his own importance." Kane's voice hardened. "He thought being right made him untouchable. Thought the law would protect him, but the law only protects people who understand how it really works, and Thomas never did. So you killed him." "I didn't personally kill anyone. I simply made a phone call to someone who made a phone call to someone else. That's how things work at my level. You never get your hands dirty." Kane examined his manicured nails. "Your father's brake line failed because I mentioned to the right person that it would be convenient if Thomas Brooks had an accident, and suddenly, coincidentally, he did." Maya felt cold rage wash through her, but she kept her voice steady. "You're admitting to murder. I'm sharing information with someone who won't be alive to repeat it." Kane's smile was genuine now, predatory. "You see, Maya, I never intended to let you walk away. This conversation was simply to satisfy my curiosity about whether you were as naive as your father. Turns out, you are." Maya took a step back. "I'm recording this. Everything you just said. I know. I'm counting on it." Kane pulled out his phone, pressed something. Do you really think I'd come here without checking for wires? I've known since you walked up that you're recording. The difference is, no one is ever going to hear that recording. Men materialized from the shadows, 6 of them, all armed, all moving to surround Maya. She recognized the scarred man from the diner, the refrigerator, and 4 new faces that looked equally capable of violence. Adrian's voice crackled in Maya's earpiece. They'd set up communication devices at the last minute. Run! North exit now! But the north exit was already blocked. So was every other obvious route. Kane watched her realize she was trapped. Your friend Adrian is quite resourceful. Former intelligence, connections in useful places, enough skill to cause me significant problems. But he's also predictable. Every escape route he planned, I planned around. Every contingency, I anticipated. You're going to kill me. Maya heard how flat her voice sounded, like her brain was already trying to distance itself from what was coming. Eventually. But first, you're going to tell me where every copy of those files is. Who has them? What their security looks like? How to get to them? Kane's expression didn't change. I'm told you worked at a diner. Long shifts, bad pay, dealing with rude customers. You develop patience, the ability to endure discomfort. Those are useful qualities for what comes next. The scarred man grabbed Maya's arm, and she tried to pull away, but his grip was iron. Another man searched her roughly, found the recording equipment, ripped it free. Adrian! Maya shouted, hoping the earpiece was still working. Adrian, he's got... A hand clamped over her mouth. Gunfire erupted from somewhere to the north, rapid bursts that echoed across the water. The men around Maya spun toward the sound, and Kane's face tightened with irritation. Persistent, he muttered. Handle it, and get her to the car. The scarred man started dragging Maya toward a black SUV parked near the base of the pier. She fought, managed to stomp on his instep hard enough to make him curse, but he didn't let go, just tightened his grip and lifted her partially off the ground. More gunfire. Closer now. And shouting, Adrian's voice, giving orders to people Maya didn't know he'd brought. Kane pulled out a gun, his composure finally cracking. I said handle it. 3 of his men ran toward the gunfire. The remaining 3 focused on getting Maya to the vehicle, moving fast now, urgency replacing the casual confidence from before. Then Elise appeared from behind a concrete barrier, and she was holding a gun that looked too big for her hands, and her face was set with the kind of determination Maya had only seen once before, the day her mother had decided they were going to survive no matter what. Let her go, Elise said. Her voice shook, but the gun didn't. The scarred man laughed. You're not going to shoot. You're right. I'm a nurse. I've spent 30 years trying to save lives, not take them. Elise's finger tightened on the trigger. But you're threatening my daughter, and I will absolutely make an exception. She fired. The shot went wide. Elise had probably never fired a gun before in her life, but it was close enough to make the scarred man duck. His grip on Maya loosened for just a second, and she wrenched free, dropping to the ground. Run! Elise screamed. Maya ran. She heard more gunshots behind her, didn't look back, just ran toward the construction site where Adrian had mapped their escape route. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed protest, but she pushed harder. Someone grabbed her from the side, and Maya nearly screamed before she recognized one of Adrian's people from earlier, a man named Eric who'd been assigned to cover the water route. This way, Eric hissed, pulling her toward a gap in the construction fence. They squeezed through, emerged into the maze of scaffolding and equipment. Behind them, the gunfire was constant now, a battle happening at the harbor while Maya ran for her life through a construction site in the middle of the night. Eric led her up a service ladder, across a catwalk that swayed under their weight, down another ladder. Maya's hands were bleeding from gripping rusted metal, and her shoulder ached where she'd hit it earlier, but she kept moving. Where's my mother? Maya gasped. Adrian's got her. They're taking the east route. Eric checked around a corner, gestured her forward. We're supposed to meet at the boat. They ran through what looked like the skeletal frame of a future building, exposed beams and concrete floors. Maya could see the water ahead, dark and uninviting. The boat was a small motor launch, nothing fancy, bobbing against a dock that looked like it hadn't been used in years. Adrian was already there, helping Elise aboard. His face was bloody, his movements stiff, but he was alive. Elise saw Maya and nearly collapsed with relief. Thank God. They piled into the boat, and Eric started the engine while Adrian cast off the lines. The boat lurched away from the dock just as Kane's men appeared on the shore, weapons raised. Bullets sparked off of the water around them. Eric pushed the throttle wide open, and the little boat jumped forward, zigzagging to make them a harder target. Maya crouched in the bottom, covering her head with her hands like that would somehow protect her from high-caliber rounds. Then they were out of range, the harbor falling away behind them, and the gunfire stopped. Maya raised her head slowly. They were headed out into open water, the city lights receding. Eric was piloting them with the kind of competence that suggested he'd done this before, and Adrian was on his phone, making arrangements Maya couldn't hear over the engine noise. Elise pulled Maya against her, and they sat together in the bottom of the boat, soaked with spray and shaking with adrenaline. "Did you get it?" Elise asked. "The recording?" Maya's hand went to her jacket, where she'd hidden a second recording device. The one Kane's people hadn't found because they'd stopped searching after finding the first. She pulled it out, checked it. Still running, still recording, the file safely stored. "I got it," she said. Adrian looked over, saw what she was holding, and smiled. It was a terrible smile, sharp and mean and victorious. "Then we won," he said. Maya looked back at the harbor, at the lights, and the distant sounds of sirens. She thought about Chris and Marcus, about the price they'd paid, about her father, who'd started this knowing it would probably kill him. "Not yet," she said, "but we will." The boat cut through dark water, carrying them away from the harbor and toward whatever came next. In Maya's pocket, the recording held Victor Kane's confession: murder, trafficking, conspiracy. Everything needed to destroy him. Now, they just had to survive long enough to use it. The boat dropped them at a marina 40 miles up the coast, a place small enough that the harbor master didn't ask questions when Eric paid cash, and they disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness. Adrian had arranged another car. Maya had stopped asking how he managed these things, and they drove inland through rural towns that were just starting to wake up, farmers heading to fields and delivery trucks making their rounds. Normal life continuing its cycle while Maya's world teetered on the edge of either victory or complete destruction. They stopped at a roadside motel, the kind that still had actual keys instead of card readers, and accepted cash without blinking. Adrian got 2 rooms, and they collapsed into them with the exhaustion that came from running on adrenaline for too long. Maya couldn't sleep. She lay on the scratchy bedspread in the room she shared with Elise, listening to her mother's breathing even out into something approaching actual rest, and stared at the water-stained ceiling. Her mind kept replaying the harbor, Kane's voice admitting to her father's murder, the gunfire, the moment when she'd thought they were all going to die. The recording device sat on the nightstand, innocuous and world-changing in equal measure. Around 7 in the morning, Adrian knocked on their door. He looked like he'd slept for maybe an hour, but his eyes were alert, focused. "Sarah Chen published," he said without preamble. Maya sat up so fast her vision swam. "What?" 20 minutes ago. Everything. The files, your story, photos of the documents. Adrian held out his phone and Maya grabbed it with shaking hands. The headline read, "Decades of Trafficking Exposed. Evidence reveals international network involving government officials, business leaders." Below it, Sarah's byline and a photo of Maya's father that made her throat close. She scrolled through the article, her eyes catching on phrases. Systematic abuse spanning 20 years. Roots through 7 countries. Children as young as 5. Names of senators, judges, corporate executives. And Victor Kane, identified as the current operational head, former military intelligence officer turned criminal mastermind. "This is everywhere," Adrian said quietly. "Every major news site picked it up within minutes. Social media is exploding. The FBI announced an emergency press conference in 2 hours. Elise had woken and was reading over Maya's shoulder. Her hand found Maya's, gripped it tight. "Your father did this," Elise whispered. 16 years later, but he did it. "We did it," Maya corrected. "All of us." Adrian's phone rang and he stepped outside to take the call. Through the thin motel walls, Maya could hear him talking, his voice low and urgent. When he came back in, his expression was complicated. "That was a friend at the Justice Department. They're moving on the names in the files. Warrants being prepared, assets frozen, people being picked up for questioning." He paused. "Kane's disappeared. They raided his office and 3 of his properties." He's gone. Maya's stomach dropped. So he got away. He ran. That's different from getting away. Adrian sat on the edge of the other bed. Every law enforcement agency in the country is looking for him now. Interpol's been notified. His face is going to be on every news channel within hours. There's nowhere he can hide that someone won't recognize him. He had 16 years to prepare for this, Maya said. Fake passports, money in offshore accounts, safe houses all over the world. He could disappear for years. Maybe. But he'll be looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life, and eventually someone will find him. Adrian's voice was hard. Men like Cain, they don't do well on the run. They're used to power, control, having people fear them. Being prey instead of predator, it destroys them in ways prison never could. It wasn't the justice Maya wanted, but she supposed it would have to be enough. They spent the day in the motel room watching the news coverage spiral into a frenzy. More journalists picked up the story, adding their own investigations and sources. Survivors started coming forward, people who'd escaped the trafficking network and had been too afraid to speak up before. Their testimonies were devastating, and Maya had to stop watching after the third one because she couldn't handle the weight of what her father's evidence had revealed. By evening, 12 arrests had been made. 2 senators, a federal judge, 3 business executives, and several mid-level operatives who'd been caught before they could run. The FBI director gave a press conference promising that this was just the beginning, that they would pursue every lead and bring everyone involved to justice. They're actually doing it, Elise said, her voice wondering. They're actually going after them. Because they have no choice now, Adrian replied. It's too public, too documented. If they tried to bury it, the backlash would destroy them. So they're doing what they should have done 16 years ago when Thomas first came to them. The bitterness in his voice made Maya look at him more closely. You blame them. The FBI, the people who were supposed to help my father. I blame everyone who knew and did nothing. Everyone who was too afraid or too corrupt or too concerned with their career to do the right thing. Adrian's jaw was tight. Thomas didn't have to die. If one person with authority had listened to him, had actually investigated instead of dismissing him, he'd still be alive. You and Elise would have had a normal life. Chris and Marcus would still be breathing. But we wouldn't have won, Maya said quietly. If they'd buried it back then, if they'd arrested a few people and left the network intact, it would have just reorganized, like it did anyway. This way, with everything public, with the whole world watching, they can't just sweep it under the rug. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. You sound like you've made peace with what your father did. I don't know about peace, but I understand it better now. Maya thought about the letter her father had left, about the choice he'd given her, destroy the evidence or finish what he started. He knew what it would cost, knew it might not work, but he did it anyway because living with himself would have been impossible if he didn't. Is that what you're telling yourself about what we did? Elise asked. That we had no choice? We had a choice. We could have run, could have destroyed the drive, could have tried to disappear and hoped Cain never found us. Maya met her mother's eyes. But we would have spent the rest of our lives wondering if we'd made the right call. And I think that would have destroyed us in its own way. Elise's face was thoughtful. Your father used to say that the hardest choices weren't between right and wrong. They were between right and easy. And the easy choice always seemed so appealing until you had to live with it. Over the next 3 days, the story continued to expand. International arrests started happening, people on the trafficking routes, operatives in other countries, financiers who'd laundered money. The scope of what had been exposed was staggering, and Maya found herself both proud and horrified by what her father had uncovered. Adrian had been in constant contact with federal prosecutors, providing additional context and information from his own investigations. They wanted to interview Maya and Elise, wanted their testimony about Cain's confession at the harbor. The recording alone is enough to charge him with conspiracy to commit murder, the prosecutor had explained over a video call. But your eyewitness accounts will strengthen the case, make it impossible for his lawyers to claim the recording was fabricated or taken out of context. Maya agreed to testify. So did Elise. It felt like the least they could do for Thomas, for Chris, for Marcus, for every person who'd been hurt by Cain's network. The interview happened in a federal building with security that made airport screening look casual. Agents escorted them through multiple checkpoints, past armed guards, into a conference room where 3 prosecutors and 2 FBI agents waited. They asked Maya to walk through everything, from the moment Adrian had approached her at the diner to the confrontation at the harbor. She told them about finding the evidence, about the drops, about Kane's admission that he'd ordered her father's death. He said he didn't kill my father personally, Maya explained. Said he just made a phone call to someone who made a phone call. That's how things work at his level. You never get your hands dirty. The lead prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Jennifer Morris, nodded. That's consistent with how Kane operates. Layers of insulation, plausible deniability. But the recording captures him clearly acknowledging the conspiracy. That's what we need. Elise's testimony focused on the 16 years after Thomas died, the running and hiding, the constant fear. Her voice shook when she described the night their apartment had been broken into the first time, the stuffed animal left on Maya's bed with its threatening tag. He wanted us to know he could get to our daughter anytime he wanted, Elise said, that we were never safe, never beyond his reach. And for 16 years we believed it. The prosecutors asked about Adrian's involvement, his connections, the people he'd mobilized to help make the drops. Maya and Elise told them everything they knew, which admittedly wasn't much. Adrian existed in shadows, and most of what he did remained mysterious even to them. We'll need to speak with Mr. Vale as well, one of the FBI agents said. His background is complicated. There are some questions about his methods. His methods saved our lives, Maya said flatly, multiple times. Whatever questions you have about him, remember that. The agent's expression didn't change. We'll take that under advisement. After hours of questioning, they were finally released. Adrian was waiting outside the building, leaning against a car and looking exhausted. How bad was it? He asked. They're going to want to talk to you, Maya said. About your methods. Adrian sighed. Of course they are. I use connections they don't approve of, operate in gray areas that make them uncomfortable. But they'll use what I gave them, and they'll conveniently forget to ask too many questions about where it came from. Will you be okay? Elise asked. I've been not okay for a long time. This is just more of the same. He opened the car door for them. Come on, I've got one more thing to show you. He drove them to a cemetery on the edge of the city, older sections with weathered headstones and newer areas with fresh flowers. He parked near the older section and led them up a small hill. Thomas Brooks' grave was simple, a flat stone with his name, dates, and the word, beloved father. Someone had been maintaining it, keeping the grass trimmed and occasionally leaving flowers. Maya suspected Adrian had been doing that for 16 years. I thought you might want to tell him, Adrian said quietly. That it worked, that what he died for actually mattered. Maya knelt by the stone, her fingers tracing her father's name. She'd been 11 the last time she was here, too young to fully process what death meant, too overwhelmed by grief to understand the scope of what her father had tried to do. We finished it, Dad, she said, her voice cracking. We found what you hid, and we made sure the whole world saw it. Kane's running, the network's collapsing, and people are finally being held accountable. It cost us so much, but we did it. Elise knelt beside her, placed her hand on the stone. I'm sorry I was angry at you for so long. Sorry I blamed you for leaving us. I understand now that you did the only thing you could do, and I'm proud of you, Thomas. So incredibly proud. They sat there for a while, three people who'd loved Thomas Brooks in different ways, processing what his choice had meant and what it had cost. Finally, Adrian spoke. I made you a promise, Thomas. That day at the hospital, when I couldn't save you but swore I'd protect your family. I kept it. It took longer than either of us would have wanted, but I kept it. They left flowers, white roses that Maya bought from a vendor near the cemetery entrance. As they walked back to the car, Maya felt something loosen in her chest, some knot of grief and anger and fear that had been there for so long she'd forgotten what it felt like without it. What happens now? She asked. Now you rebuild, Adrian said. Both of you. Figure out who you want to be when you're not running. What about Kane? Elise asked. As long as he's out there. He's a fugitive with no resources and everyone looking for him, even if he manages to stay hidden for a while. He's not coming after you. You're too visible now, too protected. Touching you would bring down more heat than he can handle. Adrian started the car. You're free, Elise. Maybe for the first time in 16 years, you're actually free. Elise was crying, and Maya wasn't sure if it was grief or relief or some combination of both. The trial happened 9 months later. Victor Kane had been caught trying to board a cargo ship in Singapore, looking haggard and 20 years older than his photos. His extradition took weeks, his lawyers filing motion after motion, but eventually he was brought back to face justice. Maya testified in person, sitting in the witness box with Kane 15 feet away. He looked diminished in his prison orange, the expensive suits and commanding presence replaced by the reality of what he'd become, a criminal in chains, facing life in prison. She told the jury everything: the harbor confrontation, his confession, the casual way he'd admitted to ordering murders and destroying lives. When the prosecution played the recording, Kane's own voice filling the courtroom with his arrogance and cruelty, she watched several jurors recoil. The defense tried to discredit her, suggesting she was motivated by revenge, that she'd fabricated evidence and manipulated the recording. But the audio analysis proved the recording was genuine, and Maya's testimony was corroborated by Adrian, Elise, and even one of Kane's own men who'd agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence. The jury deliberated for 6 hours before returning with their verdict: guilty on all counts. Kane showed no emotion when the verdict was read, but Maya saw his hands shake slightly as the bailiff led him away. He'd spend the rest of his life in a federal supermax prison, isolated 23 hours a day, with no chance of parole. It should have felt like victory, and it did, partially. But it was a hollow victory, because Chris and Marcus were still dead, because her father had missed 16 years of her life, because the children who'd been trafficked still carried those scars, and some of them would never be found. "Justice isn't clean," Adrian said afterward, as they stood on the courthouse steps while media cameras flashed. "It's messy and incomplete, and it never quite fixes everything that was broken. But it's still worth fighting for." Maya thought about that a lot over the following months, as she tried to figure out what came next. The FBI had helped with new identities if they wanted them, relocation assistance, financial compensation for what they'd endured. But Maya found she didn't want to run anymore, didn't want to hide behind a new name and pretend to be someone else. She enrolled in college instead, pursuing a degree in criminal justice. Her professors quickly realized she knew more about actual criminal operations than most of their textbooks contained, and they often asked her to guest lecture about her experiences. Elise went back to nursing, but this time at a clinic that specialized in helping survivors of trafficking and abuse. She said it felt like honoring what Thomas had died for, using her skills to help the people the network had destroyed. Adrian disappeared for a while after the trial, and Maya worried that he'd finally burned too many bridges with his methods and connections. But he resurfaced 6 months later, working with a coalition of international law enforcement agencies to dismantle what remained of the trafficking routes. He called occasionally, updating Maya on the progress, on the children who'd been recovered, on the lives that were being rebuilt. "We're making a difference," he told her during one of those calls. "Slowly, imperfectly, but we're making it. Your father would be proud of what we've built from what he started." A year after Kane's conviction, Maya returned to Kingston Harbor. The bench where her father had hidden his evidence was still there, more weathered than ever, the paint almost entirely gone now. She sat on it and watched the boats and thought about Sunday afternoons when the world had been simpler and her biggest worry was whether she'd drop her ice cream. "You know the thing about trauma?" Maya had asked her therapist once during one of the many sessions she'd started after everything ended. "It doesn't just go away because the danger is over. You carry it with you, and it changes who you are." "That's true," the therapist had agreed, "but you get to choose what it changes you into, whether it makes you bitter or strong, closed off or empathetic. The trauma happened. How you integrate it into who you become, that's where you have power." Maya was still figuring out what that meant, still dealing with nightmares about the harbor, about Kane's men grabbing her, about the sound of gunfire, still working through the complicated feelings about her father, about whether his choice had been brave or selfish or both. But she was working through it. That was the important part. Her phone buzzed. A text from Elise. "Dinner tonight? I'm making that pasta you like." Maya smiled and texted back confirmation. Her mother had slowly learned how to cook over the past year, trading 16 years of survival mode for something approaching actual living. They'd moved into a small house together, nothing fancy but clean and safe, and theirs. Elise had planted flowers in the front yard, which Maya took as a sign that her mother was finally allowing herself to believe they weren't going to have to run again. Another text, this one from Adrian. Kane's lawyer filed another appeal. "Going nowhere. but thought you should know. Kane would keep filing appeals until he died, Maya figured. Keep trying to find some technicality that would free him. It wouldn't work. The evidence was too solid, the conviction too airtight. But he'd try anyway because that's what men like him did. They couldn't accept that they'd lost. She sent back, "Thanks for the update. How are you?" The response took a few minutes. "Alive. Working. Missing people I wish I could have saved. The usual." Maya understood that. The guilt of survival, the weight of names that should still be attached to breathing people, Chris and Marcus, her father, the children who hadn't been recovered in time. She typed, "They'd be proud of what we did, what we're still doing." "Some days I believe that," Adrian replied. Maya watched the harbor for a while longer, then stood and walked back to her car. She had a class to teach tomorrow. Introduction to Criminal Justice, a room full of 18-year-olds who thought they understood how the system worked. She'd gently disabuse them of that notion while also teaching them how to make it work better, how to be the kind of investigators and prosecutors and defense attorneys who actually gave a damn about justice instead of just convictions. Life had settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal. Almost. There were still moments when Maya heard a car door slam and her heart rate spiked. Still nights when she couldn't sleep because her brain insisted on replaying the worst moments. Still the occasional panic attack in crowded spaces because somewhere in her nervous system, dark SUVs and men with guns were still hunting her. But those moments were becoming less frequent, and in between them, there were good things. Laughter with her mother over burnt pasta and terrible reality TV. Coffee with classmates who were becoming friends. The satisfaction of helping a survivor navigate the legal system to testify against their abuser. Small victories, but they added up. 2 years after everything ended, Maya graduated with honors. Elise cried through the whole ceremony, and Adrian showed up in an actual suit looking uncomfortable but present. After, they went to dinner at a restaurant that was probably too expensive but worth it to see Elise smile without shadows in her eyes. "To Thomas," Adrian said, raising his glass, "who started something he didn't live to finish but trusted that someone else would. To Chris and Marcus," Maya added, "who bought us time we didn't deserve but desperately needed. To surviving," Elise finished, "and to figuring out how to actually live once you've survived." They drank, and Maya felt the weight of what they'd lost and what they'd won balanced somewhere in her chest, never quite equal but learning to coexist. That night, Maya wrote a letter to her father. She'd been doing it periodically, finding it helped to organize her thoughts, to process what had happened. She never sent them anywhere, couldn't, obviously, but the act of writing them mattered. "Dear Dad, I graduated today. Top of my class, specializing in trafficking cases and victim advocacy. I'm starting work with the DA's office next month, specifically on cases that came out of exposing Kane's network. Turns out there's a lot of work to do, people to find, evidence to process, survivors who need someone in the system who actually gives a damn. Mom's doing well. Better than well, actually. She laughs now, real laughs that aren't followed by her checking over her shoulder. She's dating someone, a doctor she works with, nice guy who makes her happy. I think you'd approve, though I know that's weird to say about my mom dating someone who isn't you. Adrian's still out there fighting the good fight, still operating in those gray areas that make normal people uncomfortable. He checks on us regularly, makes sure we're safe, helps when I get stuck on a case. I think keeping your promise to protect us is the thing that keeps him going. So thank you for that, for giving him a purpose that outlasted you. I'm still angry sometimes that you died. Still wish you'd chosen differently, chosen us over trying to be a hero. But I understand now that you couldn't, that living with yourself after seeing what you saw and doing nothing, that would have killed you anyway, just slower. You taught me that some things are worth dying for. It took me a long time to learn the corollary, that those same things are worth living for, worth rebuilding for, worth carrying forward when the person who started them can't finish. I hope you're proud of what we did with what you left us. I hope it was worth it. I love you, Dad. Always will. Maya. She folded the letter and added it to the box where she kept all the others, alongside the letter her father had left for her in the waterproof bag. Reading them side by side sometimes, his words to her from 16 years ago, her words to him from now, created a strange kind of conversation across time and death. The work continued. More arrests, more trials, more pieces of the network being dismantled bit by bit. Kane's conviction had set off a chain reaction that was still rippling outward, each investigation leading to 3 more, each testimony revealing new horrors and new names. Maya threw herself into it with the same focused intensity her father must have had. Long hours reviewing case files, interviewing survivors, building airtight cases against men who thought money and power made them untouchable. She won more often than she lost, but the losses still stung. When evidence wasn't quite strong enough, when witnesses recanted under pressure, when juries couldn't quite bring themselves to believe that respected community leaders could do such terrible things. "You can't save everyone," her boss told her after a particularly devastating loss. "You can only keep fighting and hope you save enough." It wasn't satisfying, but it was true. 5 years after Kane's conviction, Maya was lead prosecutor on a case that broke open another major trafficking route, this one operating out of a shipping company that had seemed completely legitimate. The investigation led to 18 arrests across 4 countries and the recovery of 9 children who'd been missing for years. Standing in the courtroom when the verdicts came back, guilty, 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 Maya thought about her father, about the choice he'd made and the price he'd paid, about whether he would have thought it was worth it to know that his evidence, his death, his daughter had led to this moment. She decided he would have. That evening, she drove to the cemetery. She hadn't been in a while, caught up in work and life and trying to build something stable. But standing at his grave with flowers in her hands, she felt the same complicated mix of love and grief and gratitude that always came with remembering him. "We got 18 more today," she told the stone. 18 people who'll never hurt another child. 9 kids going home to families who thought they'd never see them again. "It's because of you, Dad. Because you couldn't live with doing nothing." The wind picked up, rustling through the trees overhead, and Maya let herself imagine it was his response. Some acknowledgement that he heard her, that he knew what his choice had meant. She stayed until the sun started to set, talking to him about her life and her cases and the person she was becoming, about how hard it was to carry forward his legacy while also being her own person, about the weight of knowing that people expected her to be like him when she was still figuring out who she was. When she finally left, she felt lighter. Not healed, she didn't think that part ever really healed, but balanced. The grief and the pride coexisting, the loss and the purpose intertwined. Her phone rang as she drove home. Elise. "Hey, Mom." "Hey, baby, you okay? You sound tired." "I'm good. Just visited Dad's grave." A pause. "How are you feeling about that?" "Like he'd be proud of us, of what we've built from what he started." Maya smiled at the road ahead. "Like maybe we're finally learning how to live instead of just survive." "Good," Elise said softly. "That's all he ever wanted for us. To live, and to live well." They talked for the rest of the drive, about nothing and everything. The easy conversation of people who'd survived hell together and come out the other side changed, but intact. That night, Maya didn't have nightmares. She dreamed instead of Sunday afternoons at the harbor, of ice cream and boat watching, and a father who loved her enough to try to make the world better, even knowing what it would cost. In the morning, she'd wake up and go back to work, back to building cases and fighting for survivors and trying to dismantle what remained of the networks her father had first exposed. It was hard work, often heartbreaking, and would probably take the rest of her life. But it was good work, work that mattered, work that honored the memory of a man who'd chosen to be good, even when it was easier to look away. And that, Maya had learned, was how you carried forward a legacy. Not by trying to be exactly like the person who left it to you, but by taking what they gave you and building something new from it. Something that was theirs and yours both, woven together from sacrifice and survival, and the stubborn refusal to let evil win without a fight. Thomas Brooks had died trying to expose a trafficking network. His daughter lived to finish what he started and to build something better from the ruins of what he'd torn down. In the end, that had to be enough.